Chapter 1235. According to the tradition of previous years, Jianghu would hold a New Year's banquet on New Year's Day. She would invite the civil and military officials under her command to have a meal together and exchange feelings. Back then, there were only 2 or 3 people in her camp. The New Year's banquet was just a simple gathering to eat barbecued meat and warm a cauldron. Now that the family business had expanded, Jianghu's subordinates had also increased by quite a lot. Apart from the mainstays, in the past 2 years, many middle-level talents had been selected from the Golden Scale Pavilion. Jianghu naturally wanted them to attend an event like the New Year's banquet to broaden their horizons. With more people, the venue naturally had to keep up with the times and increase the area. To ensure that the New Year's banquet went smoothly, Jianghu arranged seats according to the status of the guests. The mainstay could drink with her, while the slightly less talented people ate separately in the side halls. Jianghu originally wanted to continue the fine tradition of the officials producing their own programs, but this suggestion was rejected by the audience in the streaming room. Lo Sijilianmeng, although self-produced programs can increase the officials' participation, it's not good to do this every year. Those who have been with you for a long time know your temperament, but those middle management staff don't. If you force yourself to do so, it will easily damage your reputation. Gui kai guo feng shao, in my opinion, it's better to have a classification system. If an important official can drink with you, it means that their relationship with you is closer, so there is no need to be too rigid about etiquette. Since they were all on the same side, it was fine to let them perform on their own. You don't have to specially arrange singers and dancers for those who are arranged for the banquet. It's better to choose folk artists. This way, it'll be more approachable to the people. Jianghu did not like spending money on singers and dancers. Such an extravagant and depraved life did not suit her style. If she had to make an exception for a group of middle-level personnel, she would not feel comfortable. The audience in the live stream room brainstormed and came up with a compromise for her. Not only could it make the subordinates more friendly to the common people, but it could also clearly distinguish their status and stimulate their fighting spirit. A lord who was kind to her subordinates was not a good lord. While being kind to her subordinates, she also had to let them understand the difference in status and intimacy. Jianghu had the same idea. The suggestion from the audience in the streaming room was exactly what she wanted. If that's the case, then let the theater choose a few plays that are lively, festive, and friendly to the people, Jianghu added. It'd be best if it's a new show. The power of Wanzhou flourished, and the entertainment industry prospered along with the growth of the economy and population. With Jianghu's permission, Wei Ci vigorously developed novelists and related industries, using entertainment methods to control public opinion. After several years of implementation, the results were remarkable. The people of Wanzhou had been ravaged by Wei Ci's great method of brainwashing through public opinion, and they had long regarded her as a god. Didn't you see that countless men and women yearned for Jianghu's favor day and night? As the leader in this field, Wei Ci had to take on this task. If not for the fact that Wei Ci was an ancient person, the audience would have suspected that he was a time traveler. This kind of method was not rare in the current era of the live stream viewers, but in an ancient era where entertainment was scarce, it was terrifying. However, Wei Ci had struggled for so many years, and the entertainment industry was still thriving because of him. After a few years, not only did Jianghu not have to pay for it, but Wei Ci also earned a large sum of money for Jianghu's private treasury every year. In the past, no one would waste effort in this aspect, so Wei Ci's torment did not cause suspicion, or rather, they did not think that the entertainers on the streets, the storytellers in the tea houses and taverns, a group of lowly people, could influence public opinion. They did not even dare to think about it. They disdained to deal with entertainers and despised this group of people. Naturally, they did not think that they were potentially terrifying. The previous means of public opinion was at most to make up a ballad and spread it through the mouths of hooligans, ruffians, and children. Wei Ci's organized and disciplined method of criticism was a magnificent feat that had never been done before. Wei Ci said, if it's a new play, it's better to let everyone watch it together, so as to avoid favoritism. Jianghu thought about it, nodded, and responded, what you said makes sense. passed down the instructions to let the theater prepare for the new play. The entertainment industry was gradually taking shape, and many other industries were spawned. Seeing this, Wei Ci simply introduced the official theater troupe. What was a theater troupe? It was equivalent to the pear garden that the audience was familiar with, and its form was similar to actors. The entertainers acted with the novel scripts given by the officials, and at the same time, they could enjoy the basic salary given by the officials. If the people gave a lot of tips, the entertainers could also get a share of the tips. Real people acted out the content of the novel, which was more interesting than the stories told by the storytellers. Every time the theater troupe set up the stage to perform, the surrounding area of 100 feet would be tightly packed with people, and it was very lively. The people of Wanzhou waited for the new play, just like the audience in the streaming room waiting for the online novel to be adapted into a movie. It was painful and happy. However, the former did not have as rich an entertainment life as the latter. The entertainment industry in Wanzhou was under the control of the officials, so the people had no choice. It was good enough that their favorite novel could be adapted into a theater, so the people ended up watching it with relish and completely forgot about themselves. Jiang Pengji was busy with government affairs while arranging the New Year's banquet. She was so busy that she had almost no time to rest. It was the first time that Han Yu, Qin Gong, and the others participated in the New Year's banquet, so they did not know many of the rules. They could only ask the experienced people in private. Those who have families bring their families, and those who don't, bring their stomachs. The New Year's banquet is for fun, so there's no need to be as cautious as usual. Yang Si smiled and said, "Let's not talk about other things. The dishes of the New Year's banquet held by the Lord are different every year. I heard that there will be fruits and vegetables this year. In winter, most people ate meat or wild dried products. Vegetables and fruits were almost delusional." Fruits and vegetables? At this time of the year? Han Yu was skeptical about Yang Si's words. He had cheated Yang Si before, but who could guarantee that the narrow-minded Yang Si would not dig a trap for himself? "I heard that it was Zhang Ping and Xiao Guang from the woodworking workshop who came up with it. You know that the weather in the north is cold, and the barren Beiyuan is freezing all year round. In order to resist the severe cold, the people gathered their ideas and came up with a good idea. That's how the heating bed came about." Yang Si said, "This thing can make the room as warm as spring, and it can also make the spring and summer fruits and vegetables ripen in winter. It's a pity that it's a little expensive." Yang Si was a foodie, and he was very picky. Eating fruits and vegetables in winter was something that he dreamed of. Now that his wish had come true, he naturally raised both his hands and feet in agreement. Han Yu frowned. "Not going with the flow of nature, not in season, and it's not harmful to eat them?" People believed that there must be demons when something abnormal happened. Wasn't it evil that the fruits and vegetables did not ripen in the right season? Confucius once said, "Don't eat when it's not in season," which meant that they would not eat when it was not in season. Chapter 1236. Yang Si said, "You won't die from eating them. They're all the same, it's just that the season is different. My Lord wants to do things that ordinary people can't do. Fruits and vegetables that are out of season are naturally included. Moreover, it's hot and dry after winter. Consuming too much dried meat is harmful to one's health. If there's something wrong with fruits and vegetables that can warm the Kong, it's because it's too much manpower and nothing else." Yang Si's words reminded Han Yu of what Jiang Pengji had said when she tried to recruit him. Her lord's ambition was to create a world that others couldn't imagine. What was eating fruits and vegetables that were out of season considered a big deal? Maybe it was just an appetizer. Han Yu said, "I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried that my lord will be accused of being extravagant." The Kong warming was not the first invention in Wanzhou. It was quite popular in Beiyuan. However, those who could afford it were mostly wealthy families. Ordinary people could only dream about it. With the Kong warming, the technology of the greenhouse was naturally not far behind. According to historical records, the technology had been around for hundreds of years. It was specially supplied to the royal family. Although the technology of the greenhouse could subvert the season and allow the nobles to eat fresh fruits and vegetables in the unseasonable season, the technology was too costly. There was once an emperor who thought it was too extravagant and ordered it to be banned. Over time, the technology gradually became history. Rather than saying that the people were going against the season, and there must be something wrong when things are abnormal, it was better to say that the greenhouse was too extravagant. Scholars also cared about their reputation. To say that the greenhouse was too extravagant was a direct slap in the face to their immediate superior. Therefore, they took a different approach and changed their argument. Is my lord still considered extravagant? Yang Si laughed. Don't worry, Wenbin. Xiao Yu said that all the expenditures for the greenhouse will be from my lord's private treasury. My lord just wants to have a good New Year's banquet so that everyone can eat fresh fruits and vegetables in winter. It's not as serious as you think. If someone thought that the fruits and vegetables that were out of season were poisonous, then don't eat them. Anyway, Yang Si was ready to eat to his heart's content. Han Yu could only be speechless. As long as my lord was happy, the New Year's banquet was held as scheduled. Early that morning, Wei Ci dug Jiang Pengji out of her bed. The maidservant helped her change into the 9-chapter royal robe that had been prepared. Jiang Pengji wore a heavy imperial robe with 9 stripes. She ascended the gate of the inner city to offer sacrifices and pray for blessings. The crowd below the city shouted at her. 9 imperial robes, black and crimson robes, coral pendants, jade ornaments and a sword. If it weren't for the fact that their clothes were different, the commoners would have shouted, "Long live the emperor." Even though he didn't do so, the commotion that was like a tsunami made people's blood boil and goosebumps spread all over their bodies. After the worship to the heavens, the day's celebration officially began. During the day, the market was already bustling with noise and excitement. At night, the streets and alleys were filled with people jostling each other. The lights were brightly lit like fireworks. Some were wearing costumes and walking on stilts, some were dancing cheerfully, some were beating gongs and drums and humming tunes. There were lantern festivals everywhere in the city. Vendors were carrying their goods and walking through the streets. Children were playing and laughing. No matter how virtuous the scholars were, they couldn't help but walk into the crowd when they saw such a lively and prosperous scene. It was very lively outside. The New Year's banquet that Jiang Pengji had carefully prepared was about to begin. The year before, there was a war. Many people spent the New Year's banquet outside. This year, her power was on another level. Jiang Pengji only needed to put on a dragon robe before she could ascend to the throne. The meaning of this New Year's banquet was particularly different. Su Ku, Qiguan Rang, and the others brought 1 or 2 family members to the designated seats. Those who had wives brought their wives, and those who didn't brought their sons, daughters, or grandchildren. If they didn't have either, well, they would come with an empty stomach like Yang Si. In this kind of formal occasion, no idiot would bring a concubine who could not even be seen in the backyard to cause trouble. Jiang Pengji sat at the table and looked down. She was instantly amused. She didn't know if she didn't look, but she was shocked when she saw it. Some of the people in her camp were married, some had children, and almost none of them were single. Feng Zhen, the prodigal son, was also going to get married after the new year. If he worked hard, the next generation in Wanzhou might be even stronger. Jiang Pengji was not only the lord, but she was also the elder of this group of children. She asked someone to distribute all the red envelopes that had been prepared in advance. It was counted as the children's New Year's money. Each red seal was filled with a nude piece of gold, which the goldsmith had made into various charmingly naive animals, which were very pleasing to the eye. The group of children, led by Feng Yi, uniformly greeted Jiang Pengji for the new year. Happy New Year, blessings rose and fell, and many of the children stuttered. However, their childish voices were pleasing to the eye. Happy New Year, all is well. Jiang Pengji solemnly returned the greeting. A few of the older children blushed. The younger children turned their heads blankly and looked at their parents. Looking at such a joyous and friendly scene, Han Yu's heart was filled with an indescribable feeling. For this New Year's banquet, he brought his wife and his eldest legitimate son. His wife was absent-minded the whole time. Although the smile on her face was flawless, the way she secretly looked at Jianghu was very disrespectful. The eldest legitimate son followed the children to pay their New Year's greetings. He returned to the banquet with a thick red envelope in his hand. His cheeks were red and his eyes were filled with excitement. When he was about to speak to Han Yu, his mother, Madame Han, glared at him. The child was so scared that he shrunk his shoulders and became as quiet as a quail. Han Yu said, "Don't be rude at the New Year's banquet." Madame Han didn't even turn her head. She raised her handkerchief to cover her mouth and said, "I am restraining my son from being rude." "What did I do wrong?" Han Yu said, "My lord's intention was to make everyone feel better." "Madam, you don't have to restrain your child like this. Just don't be rude." He saw a few children who had received the red envelopes were laughing and chatting with their parents. It looked very warm and happy. This New Year's banquet was like a family gathering. There was no need for etiquette. Madame Han said sarcastically, "Lang Jun, you should be more cautious. If something happens in the future, even the smallest mistake will be a big one." Han Yu's eldest legitimate son looked at his parents' conversation and felt a little uneasy. Although he didn't understand what they were talking about, the atmosphere between them made him feel a little uncomfortable. Han Yu could only ignore Madame Han. According to her temperament, she wouldn't do anything out of line at the New Year's banquet anyway. If there was anything, they could talk about it after the banquet was over. The theater arranged a few lively new plays. The actors who participated in the performances were all the best actors. Everyone watched with great interest. When the atmosphere was almost hyped up, it was time for the entertainment that everyone brought. They played the guqin, danced with the sword, wrote calligraphy, recited poems, and composed poems. It was not terrible to have the same performance, but it would be embarrassing for anyone who did not perform well. Madame Han agreed with the literary talent of those people, but she was quite disdainful of their public performances. She smiled and asked Han Yu, "Doesn't Lord Lanting want to join the fun with the people?" Jianghu had amazing hearing. Of course, she didn't miss the movements of Han Yu and his wife, who were sitting in the front row. Chapter 1237. Naturally. What's that? Except for Han Yu, the rest of the people were puzzled. They couldn't figure out why their lord would suddenly say something like that. Those guys were obsessed with the performance. They were all smiling on the surface, but in their hearts, they had already insulted each other. Of course, they didn't notice the conversation between Han Yu and his wife. Han Yu was so shocked that he was sweating profusely. His heart skipped a beat and his face turned pale. Mrs. Han was also shocked. She was embarrassed and she didn't dare to look up and meet Jianghu's eyes. Han Yu's seat wasn't very far behind, but it wasn't too far in front either. He was still more than 30 meters away from Jianghu. The couple deliberately lowered their voices so that no one else could hear them except the eldest son, who was sitting obediently. Mrs. Han was arrogant, but she also knew how to read people's expressions. There was a big difference between speaking ill of Jianghu in private and being caught speaking ill of her behind her back. Even though Mrs. Han was experienced and had been to many banquets of the aristocratic families, she couldn't help but feel nervous at that moment. Her glib tongue seemed to be tied into a knot and she couldn't say a word. Her forehead was covered with fine sweat. Even though she had applied rouge on her face, it still couldn't hide the panic on her face. Ever since she was a child, she had always been the center of attention in the circle of aristocratic women. Everyone flattered her and gave in to her. Her head had always been held high, but at this time, because of the few words of another woman, she was frightened to the point of sweating and trembling in fear. She was afraid, but at the same time, she was angry and resentful. However, no matter how much the aristocratic families despised Lu Shi, it couldn't change the fact that she had become the most powerful feudal lord. And she, no matter how powerful she was only powerful in the inner house. She was nothing in front of Jianghu. "What's wrong with you?" Jianghu didn't look at Han Yu and his wife. If she did, the group of people present would know and Han Yu would be embarrassed. Jiang Pengji considerately helped Han Yu out. I just remembered what Zixiao asked me before the New Year's banquet. He winked at me just now. Alas, he was afraid that I would break my promise to him. Wei Ci was suddenly called out, but there was no change in his expression. Instead, he smiled and continued the conversation. Master, you can't blame me for reminding you. I have been looking forward to it for a long time, so naturally, I think about it. Today, Wei Ci had changed into a rather cheerful warm-colored thick shirt, which diluted his original alienation. In the words of the audience in the live streaming room, Wei Ci today was very amiable and down-to-earth. He didn't know what had happened, but he was able to continue the conversation. No one suspected anything. After all, Wei Ci and Jiang Pengji's cooperation was flawless. Except for Han Yu and his wife, no one knew what was going on. On the contrary, a few civil officials sitting on the counter vaguely sensed something. After all, no matter how fast Han Yu and his wife reacted, there were still traces left behind. Qiguan Rang retracted his gaze. His brows furrowed imperceptibly. Coincidentally, his hand was empty. He looked down. His daughter had stolen his feather fan, but her hand stopped awkwardly in midair before she could retract it. Jinghui. Qiguan Rang's thin lips opened slightly. His daughter shrunk her neck and carefully put the feather fan back into his hand. Mother is right. This fan is my lifeblood. It can't be separated from me at all times. The snow outside had not melted yet, and the banquet was being heated by the fire. Only her father's style was different. He was holding a fan in his hand. Not only was he holding it, but he was also fanning it, mercilessly blowing away the warmth around her. If it weren't for the cold, she wouldn't have sneakily stolen her father's fan. Qiguan Rang's expression became a little awkward. He raised his hand and put the fan behind his waist. After all, it was a habit of many years. He felt uncomfortable all over if he didn't hold something in his hand. Qiguan Weisher saw his embarrassment and uneasiness, so she took the initiative to offer her hand to him. Under the cover of their wide sleeves, the couple held hands as if there was no one else around. For a moment, everything was peaceful. Qiguan Jinghui saw their interaction and inexplicably felt a little strange. Jinghui? Sun Wen had been working in Biyao, for almost 2 years. Because of the New Year's banquet, he made a special trip back to Wanzhou to report on his work. His adorable little grandson, Lan, sat obediently beside him, making the old man feel an unprecedented sense of happiness. However, Sun Lan, on the other hand, couldn't sit still. She kept twisting her head and glancing at the seats beside her from time to time. When Qiguan Jinghui heard Sun Lan calling her, she temporarily threw that strange feeling to the back of her mind and responded to her friend's call with a smile. Sun Wen saw this and remembered it in his heart. Lan likes that girl a lot. Sun Lan blushed and said shyly, Jinghui is very nice. She often takes care of me. Of course I like her. Sun Wen said, I like him, but that Qiguan Wenzheng is not easy to deal with. Sun Lan was confused. What did him liking Jinghui have to do with Jinghui's father? You'll find out later. Sun Wen held back his laughter and continued, if you like her, then spend more time with her. Don't bully her. Sun Wen also noticed that his grandson had become much more outgoing and optimistic in the past 2 years. As someone who loved grandchildren, there was nothing more important in this world than having grandchildren. If his grandson liked it, then he liked it. Qiguan Rang was a little difficult to deal with, but it wasn't impossible to deal with him. The grandfather and grandson talked in low voices. Qiguan Rang, who was some distance away, seemed to have sensed their conversation. He glanced at them from the corner of his eye. At that moment, Qiguan Rang heard his lord say something. For today's performance, I still need to borrow something from Zixiao. Qiguan Rang's attention immediately returned to the banquet. His lord got up from the banquet table and seemed to want to perform something. Jiang Pengji wanted to borrow something from Wei Ci. How could he refuse? With the green light all the way, Jiang Pengji successfully borrowed Wei Ci's flute and his daughter. Everyone was confused. When did Wei Ci have a daughter? He didn't even have a wife. Could she be an illegitimate daughter who was tossed around during the war? A few insiders looked at Wei Ci and then at their lord. They were afraid that the New Year's banquet would turn into a battlefield. Wei Ci was surprised at first, then he revealed an indescribable expression. His ears turned red at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Wei Ci had once teased that the iron-eating beast was Jiang Pengji's daughter. Now that Jiang Pengji teased him back in public, didn't that mean that the iron-eating beast was their daughter? Others didn't know the details and were purely watching the show. As an insider, Wei Ci felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. He was teased in public, and he was so embarrassed that he didn't want to show his face. Not long after, a servant girl came up with a black and white ball. The ball's black and shiny eyes were pure and clean. As soon as it landed, it wiggled its buttocks and quickly crawled toward a familiar person. Jiang Pengji smiled as she took the jade flute. Feng Zhen and the others saw the situation and were suddenly enlightened. They suddenly remembered the battle with the Gaoyue clan in Song Prefecture. Their lord's flute music could be said to be heavenly. Although she could tame beasts, their lord's musical talent was really unflattering. If she played music in public. Chapter 1238. Jiang Pengji giggled and said, "I'm having fun with the people today. If I don't play well, please don't mind." Everyone, was there still a need to say it? Didn't he know how good his lord's flute skills were? Jiang Pengji placed the jade flute to her lips and played a cheerful tune. She might not be good at anything else, but her ability to imitate and memorize was top-notch. Ever since the battle with the Gaoyue clan ended, Wei Ci had taught her how to play the flute in private. After all, she couldn't just play it randomly every time, right? Jiang Pengji was a busy person. She did not have much time to learn. So far, she only knew one song. Even if he only knew one song, he would barely be able to deal with it. Everyone and the 850,000 salted fish in the live stream were already mentally prepared for the demonic music to pour into their ears, but to their surprise, the flute music wasn't unpleasant at all. While the others were dumbfounded, Wei Ci smiled faintly. Although her skills were mediocre, his lord knew how to tame beasts, which added a lot of color to the song. As the sound of the flute rang out, the iron-eating beast that had burrowed into Wei Ci's arms seemed to have been summoned by something. Its huge face was filled with confusion. The crowd watched as it held a plate of fruits with its two front paws and walked on its two hind legs. It circled around Jiang Pengji with each step it took. As it circled, it used its hind legs to beat the beat and hummed a tune. When the tune ended, the iron-eating beast seemed to have gained intelligence. It nodded and bowed to Jiang Pengji. It held the plate of fruits high up and presented it to her in a pious manner. Jiang Pengji did not take it, so it put the fruit platter down. "You may leave." The iron-eating beast seemed to understand her words. It wriggled its way towards Wei Ci, clinging onto his knees as it climbed into his embrace. It found a comfortable position, yawned, and closed its eyes to sleep. Jiang Pengji smiled and kept the jade flute. She bent over to pick up the fruit platter and put it back on Wei Ci's table. Everyone was in a daze for a long time. They looked at Jiang Pengji and then at the sleeping cub. Could it be that this iron-eating beast had become a spirit? So human-like? Jiang Pengji smiled and said, "It's just a small trick to train beasts. It's fine to use it for entertainment and to make you laugh." It took a long time for everyone to recover from the show. Even if Jiang Pengji's song was not exquisite, the addition of the iron-eating beast's performance still brought about a qualitative change in the entire program. Not only did he not make a fool of himself, but he also added a layer of mystery to himself. The people of this era were still very superstitious. The more extraordinary Jiang Pengji's performance was, the better it would be. Naturally, the more outstanding she would be. Her little show of skill had fooled the civil and military officials who had never seen the world. However, Salted Fish in the live stream room lived in an era of information explosion, so he naturally wasn't that easily fooled. As soon as Jiang Pengji's performance ended, the bullet screen in the streaming room was like a blowout. All of them were praising her. Gu Mengjiu, the host, has finally shown her Mary Sue aura. It's best if she blinds them. Little gray round gun, not only did the streamer blind Ci Meiran and the rest, but my eyes are also going blind. How old was that fatty da? Even if it had been trained since it was in its mother's womb, it couldn't have behaved so humanely, right? Moreover, they were not used to walking on two hind legs, which was not good for their bodies. However, this little fatty was able to do it so smoothly and naturally. It was definitely a fatty demon. Luo Yu Ta Hua Xing, it cooperated very well with the host. It was even humming a tune just now. If this isn't becoming a demon, what is it? The Fairy Queen's Crimson. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, animals are not allowed to become demons. Tudu Feiqiu, the host doesn't have this heavenly restriction. Maybe it has become a demon. Didn't you notice that this fatty da was the fatty da that appeared in the live stream room a long time ago? It used to be so small. Now that almost a year has passed, it's still so small. As everyone knew, after a young fatty da was born, it changed considerably. The age of the fatty da on the screen was obviously very young. It looked to be only 3 to 5 months old. Jiang Pengji smiled without saying a word. She did not explain the secret behind it. Of course, this iron-eating beast did not become a demon. Its actions were all controlled by Jiang Pengji. She turned her mental strength into an invisible force and manipulated the iron-eating beast to do what she wanted. The truth was that simple. Jiang Pengji did not explain. Everyone could only attribute the effect of the performance to the magical, familiar, and becoming a demon from being fat. It was rare for her to perform, so the civil and military officials naturally gave her face and supported her performance. The atmosphere of the New Year's banquet returned to normal. Seeing that, Mrs. Han's expression became extremely stiff, as if it was covered with a layer of plaster. She did not feel good at all. She reflected on herself. She felt that it was probably her fault for being too obvious. That was why Hanyu had a handle on her. If she had been more cautious just now, she would not have been so embarrassed. Even though Jiang Pengji had considerately helped Hanyu out, it was still a slap in the face in Mrs. Han's eyes. It seemed that she did not expose her, but in fact, she had torn off her dignity and trampled on it. Mrs. Han felt so suffocated that she could not breathe. Her face was getting worse and worse. Hanyu said, "Are you satisfied now? This is the New Year's banquet. Restrain yourself. Don't lose your manners and make a fool of yourself." Mrs. Han would not listen to anything else, but when it came to her manners and dignity, she would listen to it very well. No matter how resentful Mrs. Han was, she did not dare to show her anger. She could only swallow it back. Jiang Pengji laughed and chatted with the crowd while secretly glancing at Han Yu and his wife. The couple did not seem to get along well. But, after all, it was Han Yu's family business. As a man, he would handle it well. Jiang Pengji was an outsider and the lord. It was not appropriate for her to intervene. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Jiang Pengji took the crowd to watch a few lively new plays. Some of the new plays were warm and happy, and some were purely funny, like crosstalk and skit. When it was almost time, Jiang Pengji asked them to go home and stay with their families for the New Year's Eve. It was the first time that the eldest son of Han Yu's wife had a New Year's Eve like this. He was still thinking about the content of the new plays and the peers he had just met. Mrs. Han sat in the carriage silently. There was a distance of a few fists between her and Han Yu. Han Yu said, "After the New Year's Eve, I plan to send my son to the Golden Scale Academy for his education." "How can the Golden Scale Academy compare to my family's school?" Mrs. Han frowned. "That kind of place will lead the students astray." Han Yu was a little angry. He said, "My teacher also teaches in the academy. How can it lead the students astray?" Mrs. Han did not say anything, but judging from her eyes and expression, she did not approve of Han Yu. So what if it was the Golden Scale Academy? How could a reputation that was made up of be compared to the aristocratic families that had made great contributions? However, her husband did not understand her. The more she thought about it, the more she felt wronged. In order to be a good example of a noble lady, she promoted the maids who had served Hanyu before their marriage. She even gave them face and treated their children kindly. She had worked hard for her family, but she could not get Hanyu's understanding and respect. Mrs. Han said forcefully, "If you want to use the children's future to flatter them, you can humiliate anyone but me." The sons and daughters of concubines in the inner courtyard could just go to the Golden Scale Academy. Anyway, they were the sons of concubines who couldn't be seen in public. It would be a waste for them to study with a bunch of lowly commoners' children. If she let her eldest son go to the academy, she would cry to death. Hanyu was so angry that his face turned green. The eldest son of the concubine lowered his head silently under the gloomy atmosphere. He did not dare to look at his parents. "You are not allowed to be willful and mischievous," Mrs. Han sneered. "Are you really as cruel as iron? Are you going to humiliate my son?" Hanyu said, "I am not humiliating him. I love him dearly. Why would I harm him?" Mrs. Han was disheartened. She was so angry that she and Hanyu lived separately. She left the father and son to stay up for the New Year's Eve and went to bed early. Hanyu let out a long sigh, but he could not do anything to his wife. "When you go to the Golden Scale Academy, treat your classmates with courtesy. Do not be arrogant," Hanyu gently reminded his eldest son during the New Year's Eve. The eldest son was gentle and obedient. Chapter 1239. After the beginning of the new year, happy events came one after another. The most exciting event was Feng Zhen and Wan Xiu's wedding. This pair was really beyond everyone's expectations. After all, who didn't know what kind of person Feng Lengzi was? Everyone heard that Feng Zhen was getting married, but many people thought it was just gossip. After all, Feng Zhen's image as a prodigal son was deeply ingrained in people's hearts. Everyone would rather believe that a sow climbed a tree than believe that Feng Zhen would change his mind. Especially the middle-level newcomers recruited by the Golden Scale Pavilion, they had a deep understanding of this. When Jiang Pengji dealt with Su Bei last year, Feng Zhen stayed behind to guard the rear. The new recruits would have to interact with Feng Zhen and the others. Putting aside his ability to get things done, Feng Zhen's image as a prodigal son was deeply ingrained in everyone's hearts. Many of the new recruits hadn't even familiarized themselves with the affairs of the city, but they had already heard rumors about Feng Zhen making a scene at some wine shop. How rare was this? Was there anyone in this world who could take in this prodigal son? The old official did not move, but the new official could not suppress his curiosity. He raised his head in anticipation, waiting to see what kind of fairy the bride was. In the words of the viewers in the live stream room, who would dare to go up Liangshan if they didn't have a few tricks up their sleeve? Feng Zhen said proudly, "This is called a prodigal who repents is more precious than gold." Yang Si sneered, mercilessly mocking Feng Zhen. "You're a real wastrel. I don't know if you'll really turn back." Feng Zhen choked on his words. How could he speak like a human? Was there a need to question his character? A spit and a nail, a promise as heavy as Mount Tai. If he said he would turn back without any hesitation. Feng Zhen resisted the urge to roll his eyes and strangle Yang Si. He gritted his teeth and said, "We're about to get married. Can't you say something nice?" Although he was a romantic, he was not a man without family responsibilities. It was fine to fool around before marriage, but after marriage, it was time to turn over a new leaf. He and Feng Yi's mother had been in love for a while after they got married. If it wasn't for the early death of his first wife, Feng Zhen wouldn't have completely let himself go after her death. Although he was unrestrained, he was only unrestrained and not a scumbag. The relationship between a man and a woman was about compatibility. A melon that was forcefully twisted would not be sweet. Mutual consent was the way of the king. He still had this bit of moral integrity. Seeing that Feng Zhen's explanation was logical and logical, Yang Si could only respond with a cold huff. Could he say that he was very unhappy? Feng Zhen, that little b****, had found an honest man to take over his business. Now, he had a wife, a son, and a wife. He was a winner in life. Why was he still alone? Yang Si looked calm and collected on the surface, but in fact, he was filled with resentment. His face was drooping all day long, as if he was dissatisfied. Dian Yan, who was being taught by Yang Si, spoke up weakly. Isn't it easy for military advisor Yang to start a family? As long as you let out the slightest bit of news, wouldn't those matchmakers rush over like a hive of bees with portraits of girls in their hands and trample over your doorstep? Yang Si secretly glared at Dian Yan. Was it fun to tear him down? This crude and stupid martial artist had not improved at all. How could women be the same? What was the difference between a person without any pursuit and a salted fish? If he were to marry a wife, he would naturally marry the one he liked the most in his eyes. Any random woman would suffice. He might as well continue to fool around. If it's that easy, why don't you find one? He couldn't diss that little b**** Feng Zhen, but wouldn't it be easy to deal with Dian Yan? Who would have thought that Dian Yan, this dark-skinned and honest man, would also commit adultery? I'm already married and have a wife. Of course, I don't need to look for one. He looked at Yang Si and stammered, have you forgotten, military advisor? My wife was a matchmaker for me. She's now the centurion of the casualty barracks. Yang Si was stunned. He thought back carefully and it seemed that there really was such a thing. This happened when the two of them were ordered to guard Hu County. Yang Si saw that Dian Yan, this honest man, was all alone and didn't even have a wife who could take care of him. Yang Si acted like a matchmaker and introduced him to someone. Dian Yan's wife was originally the centurion of the female battalion. She was about to be promoted, but she was injured and had no choice but to retire. After that, she applied to go to the casualty barracks and became an apprentice with the military doctor. She learned pretty good trauma treatment. This girl's character was straightforward and generous. Her family background was clean and she had no parents or brothers to hold her back. The key was that she was not bad-looking and could read a few words. Among the commoners, she could be considered a model girl that would be sought after by hundreds of families. Yang Si was tempted and introduced her to Dian Yan as a matchmaker. Don't let goodies flow to outsiders. He never expected that this matter would become a stone that would smash his own foot. This boorish man was really pissed off. Yang Si glared at Dian Yan angrily. The latter was at a loss and didn't know how he had offended his military advisor Yang. Flirtatious words aside, Feng Zhen was getting married. He still had to give his blessings. In this world, it wasn't easy to start a family. He should cherish it. From the time the news spread to the wedding, it had been less than 2 months. Everyone thought that the wedding wouldn't be held. With so little time, it was understandable that they weren't fully prepared. Moreover, Feng Zhen and Wan Xiu were married halfway, so it definitely wouldn't be as solemn as their first marriage. In the end, they had underestimated Feng Zhen's flirtatious methods. Time was tight, but the wedding wasn't shabby at all. So what if they were married halfway? A second marriage was still a marriage. What should be done had to be done. They definitely couldn't let the guests attending the wedding banquet laugh at them. It's rare for Zhi to be so serious. It was an indisputable fact that the wedding preparations were tight. However, Wei Ci and the others didn't see any signs of haste or impoliteness. From this, it could be seen that Feng Zhen still took this wedding very seriously. Yang Si laughed coldly in his heart when he saw this. In his mind, he recalled the scene of Feng Zhen leisurely slacking off. The wedding was very attentive, but the person doing the hard work wasn't Feng Zhen. He was just an absentee shopkeeper, so what if he had a smart and capable son? Reality had proven that having a smart and capable son was indeed a great thing. Not only did Feng Zhen marry a beautiful woman today, but he also praised his son in front of the guests. He praised Feng Yi's face so much that it looked like a flower had bloomed. In the eyes of outsiders, it probably looked like a flower had bloomed. How old was Feng Yizong? At such a young age, he was already so methodical and organized. What would he be like when he grew up? Although it was just a wedding, there were many tricks to it. Just entertaining guests and dealing with people was a complicated subject. Feng Yi could handle things with ease now. He wasn't slick, but he was still watertight. Feng Yi's personality was gentle and not flamboyant, but he was a good seedling in the officialdom. If the world was at peace and his lord had the possibility of advancing, Feng Yi might become the leader of this generation. Understanding this, many people looked at Feng Zhen with unfriendly gazes. Why? Feng Zhen, this unreliable guy, actually had a reliable son. Wei Ci could vaguely hear a group of people expressing envy, jealousy, and hatred toward Feng Zhen. He sighed in his heart. There was a Feng Yi now, and there would be a Feng Yu in the future. That fellow was the real troublesome one. Other people gave birth to a litter of children, good and bad, and not a single one of them would be successful. Feng Zhen, this sickly and frail person, only had 2 sons, both of whom were dragons and phoenixes among men. Chapter 1240. Perhaps even God couldn't bear to see Feng Zhen being so smug. He had only taken 3 days off before he was summoned back urgently. Feng Zhen was having a wild time. He and Wan Xiu were so intimate that they couldn't wait to be together every day. How could he care about the cold government affairs? I've rested long enough, Jiang Pengji said heartlessly. It's time for you to get back to business. Feng Zhen argued, my lord, this is different from what I said before. It's only been 3 days. When Li Yun and Shangguan Wan got married, how long was their wedding leave? This matter had to be treated equally. How could she favor one and discriminate against the other? Jiang Pengji said matter-of-factly, didn't I give you a long leave to handle your wedding? Feng Zhen was speechless. Was the time spent preparing for the wedding counted as a part of the wedding leave? As if she could read Feng Zhen's mind, Jiang Pengji almost rolled her eyes. How could there be such a good thing in the world? Feng Zhen's wedding leave was the busiest period before the new year. Jiang Pengji allowed him to take leave and assigned the heavy government affairs to others. She was already being extremely kind. If she let Feng Zhen take another half a month or a month's leave, the others would be resentful. After the new year, it was spring plowing and training. Everyone was busy. There was no reason for Feng Zhen to stay at home and be lovey-dovey with his lovely wife. Feng Zhen's request was rejected by Jiang Pengji. He could only resign himself to his fate and go to work. He was as dispirited as a salted fish. He didn't know if someone was trying to mess with him. Feng Zhen realized that the tasks he took on after he returned to work were troublesome and above average. He had been busy for 2 days. The dark circles under his eyes that he had painstakingly disappeared reappeared. He looked even more like he had kidney deficiency. This bunch of animals, Feng Zhen was smiling on the surface, but he was cursing in his heart. Did he not burn enough incense in his previous life to meet such a bunch of unscrupulous colleagues? The spring plowing was carried out in full swing. After Jiang Pengji presided over the ceremony, she stayed in the military camp to train the soldiers. Is the Duke of Lanting going to attack again this year? Tea houses and restaurants had always been the birthplace of gossip and a place for communication. The scholars within the borders of Dongqing who were attracted by the Golden Scale Pavilion loved to stop and stay in these places. They talked about current affairs and the world. If there was anything shocking, the Duke of Lanting might find out and punish them. Although the possibility of this was very small, one should have a dream as well. The Golden Scale Pavilion's assessment was very strict, and there would always be people who liked to take a different path. Since ancient times, many famous people had relied on this to be conscripted by monarchs. As the training became more and more intense, many scholars also sensed that a storm was coming. The war just ended last year, and the people haven't had enough rest yet. They shouldn't be mobilizing their troops this year. Everyone had their own opinions, and the more contradictory the topic, the more interesting it was. However, from what I can see, this Duke of Lanting is not someone who likes to settle down. A young scholar sneered and said, throughout the Duke of Lanting's road to success, when has he not climbed up by stepping on the bones of his enemies? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this person is a warmonger. Go all out? This conclusion is too arbitrary. The Duke of Lanting was forced by the situation and had no choice but to do so. Wei Xi's method of entertainment brainwashing was not something that others could imagine. In order to make the people stick closely to Jiang Pengji, he hired a pen to write a few short and medium-length stories. Most of them were adapted into new plays for the people to watch. Although the characters in the plays used aliases, people with discerning eyes could tell who they were based on at a glance. In response to Jiang Pengji's reasons for mobilizing her troops, Wei Xi also explained the new plays to the people. The ordinary people could only see the ups and downs of the plot and the awe-inspiring righteousness of the country, while the scholars could see the situation of the storm. Regardless of whether they believed it or not, the people expressed understanding and support for Jiang Pengji's several expeditions. Moreover, their Duke of Lanting fought wars, but every time she fought a war, she did not make the people unable to make a living. The military provisions and supplies were all stored in advance. If it did not work, she would open a private warehouse. She never exploited the people wantonly because of the war, nor did she impose any exorbitant taxes. Jiang Pengji tried her best to protect the people's safety and property interests. How could the people not love and respect her? Ignorant. In recent years, wars have been going on every year. Before he finished speaking, someone stood up to refute him. This is a little far-fetched. Although I don't like the Duke of Lanting, I can't stand your slander and slander. The man waved the folding fan in his hand. The wind moved the headscarf on his head, making him look rather dashing. He continued to speak with fervor and assurance, and the people nodded their heads vigorously. Since the earthquake in Shangjing, the world has been in chaos. The Tsing-Yi army, the Red Lotus group, and other evil sects have risen one after another, harming countless people. The Duke of Lanting received orders in the face of danger to expel the two traitors, integrate Wanzhou, form an alliance at the Huangshui River, enter Chongzhou in the north, control Hu County in the south, and integrate the forces of the north of Dongqing to resist the external troubles of the north borderline. After that, the entire north was calm and peaceful. After a few years of rest and reorganization, the Duke of Lanting felt that the time was ripe. Only then did he send troops to the north borderline and recover it in one fell swoop. How can this be called being a warmonger? Being a warmonger meant mobilizing troops to fight a war without a sense of propriety and overdrawing one's foundation. Their Duke of Lanting obviously did not do that. She chose to mobilize troops to the north borderline at a time when their vitality was at its weakest. It was obviously planned, organized, and premeditated. Turning the north borderline into the North Province would also greatly damage their vitality and cause them to face the predicament of being surrounded by enemies on all sides. If they showed the slightest bit of cowardice at that time, they would certainly be hunted down and eaten by the heroes. How could they be compared to the magnificent scene of everyone sitting upright in the tea-house and talking with fervor and assurance now? Subei was executed and Zhe and Shanghai counties were conquered. Most of Dongqing is already in the bag. If we don't take advantage of this victory to pursue and attack, it will be difficult to eliminate Huang Song when he has a firm foothold. In summary, Jiang Pengji had her reasons for mobilizing her troops. She mobilized her troops to allow the people in the rear to enjoy peace. Even if they didn't support her, they shouldn't make a fuss. What was the difference between this and picking up a bowl to eat and then putting down the chopsticks to curse? Her impassioned speech made many people's faces turn red with shame or ashen. Those who were more thin-skinned directly flicked their sleeves and left. Even the people could see Jiang Pengji's intention to mobilize her troops, let alone her enemies. Huang Song's side seemed calm, but in fact, undercurrents were surging in the dark. He was actively training his troops for war and stockpiling food on a large scale. It seemed like he was on the verge of breaking out. Everyone was preparing for war. Of course, in ancient times, wars could not be fought at will. They had to choose the right time. It was inadvisable to start a war before and after the spring plowing. In this era, the efficiency and harvest of crops were very low. The staple crops were basically harvested once a year. In other words, if they missed this year's spring plowing, then the entire year's harvest would be gone. In war, not only did it depend on manpower, but it also depended on food and logistics. Once there was no food, how could they fight a war? The war could only start after the spring plowing. This was a convention. Chapter 1241. The territory under Jiang Pengji's rule was filled with a foreboding atmosphere. She trained her troops day by day. Everyone thought she was going to fight Huang Song. Everyone was guessing when she would do it. Unexpectedly, Jiang Pengji was much more composed than they thought. The storm in the outside world did not affect the atmosphere in the academy. The sound of students reading in the classroom was still light and pleasant. Under Jiang Pengji's suggestion, the Golden Scale Academy made a rule to recruit new students every spring. The adults outside were busy with the spring plowing. A group of little radishes also passed the selection and became the newest batch of students in the Golden Scale Academy. Apart from the freshmen of the lowest grade, other classes also welcomed some transfer students. Despite Mrs. Han's strong resistance, Han Yu still sent 3 children of the right age to the Golden Scale Academy. He had 3 sons and 1 daughter. The eldest son of the legal wife and the second son of the concubine had been educated for several years. The eldest daughter of the legal wife was 1 year younger than the second son of the concubine. The youngest son of the legal wife was only 2 years old and was still learning how to speak. Han Yu sent all 3 children to the Golden Scale Academy in one go. Mrs. Han was so angry that she almost fainted. The masters of the Golden Scale Academy took half a day to test the knowledge of the 3 children. Han Yu was very attentive to the eldest son of the legal wife. He was also the one who taught him. Later, he was sent to Mrs. Han's family to study. Although the second son of the legal wife was not as valued as the eldest son of the legal wife, he was also taught by a famous old scholar. The only daughter of the legal wife was also taught by a female master. Although she was not as good as her 2 brothers, she was still acceptable. The masters of the Golden Scale Academy tested them one by one and divided them into 3 different classes. Han Yu's eldest son of the legal wife was in the same class as Feng Yi. The master of this class was Master Yuanjing. "What's your name?" Master Yuanjing took the child away and personally sent him to the classroom. "I am Han Run." "Greetings, Grand Master." Han Yu was Master Yuanjing's apprentice. Naturally, the child had to call him Grandmaster. "You can call me Grandmaster in private, but you are a student in the academy." "I am your master." Master Yuanjing liked Han Run. The child's eyes were very similar to Han Yu's when he was young, but his temperament was the opposite of Han Yu's. "Your father is busy with government affairs and has no time for your studies. If there is anything you don't understand, you must ask the masters. They will help you." Han Run's little face was a little hesitant. "If I call you master, wouldn't it be wrong? If that was the case, wouldn't he be the same generation as his father?" Master Yuanjing smiled and said, "This is not considered a mistake in seniority. Who says that I can't teach you after I taught your father?" After all, Han Run was a new student. If he addressed Master Yuanjing as Grandmaster, it would inevitably be a little unconventional. The other students of the academy were more powerful than him. Was Yuanjing's academy by the other students? With and by Master Han Yun. By you. Master Yuanjing arranged for Han Run to be next to Feng Yi. He hoped that Feng Yi could help Han Run blend into the unfamiliar environment. Jiang. By Jiang in. By and by. Was. The teaching model and environment of the Golden Scale Academy were very different from the clan school. Han Run was not used to it at first. Han Run felt like he had opened the door to a new world. In the morning, there were cultural classes, and in the afternoon, there were equestrian and martial arts classes. Before he knew it, the sun had set. Han Run noticed Feng Yi and put his textbook into his bag. "Are you ready?" Feng Yi asked. Han Run was surprised. It was the first time Feng Yi talked to him. Because of his mother's character, Han Run was shy and introverted. But he was different from Sun Lan, who was innocent and harmless. He always acted cautiously. He didn't dare to talk to Feng Yi. He didn't expect her to greet him. Han Run said, "Yes, I'm ready." Feng Yi asked, "I heard that some of your siblings are also studying in the academy?" Han Run pursed his lips and answered, "Yes." Feng Yi said, "Great. Let's go pick them up and go back together." Han Run's eyes were filled with doubt. "Pick them up?" Feng Yi said, "The Golden Scale Academy is not in the residential area. It is not remote, but there are many people. After all, the students were still young. If they encountered an adult with ill intentions, it would be impossible to guard against it. You are new students and don't know the way. I will send you back." Han Run wanted to say something but swallowed his words. He always had a question. Why didn't they let their servants drive them? Why did they have to walk by themselves? Wouldn't it be easier to encounter danger on the road? Feng Yi comforted him, "There are people around to protect us. We don't have to worry about danger." Han Yu's mansion was the closest. Han Run and the other two were sent back first. Qiguan Jinghui and Sun Lan followed. Changxing was the last one. "I just asked. Brother Han Run and his younger brother are only 5 months apart," Feng Yi said, "because the other one is born of a concubine. They don't share the same mother." Changxing said, "No wonder they walk so far away. They are not close at all." Feng Yi said, "It would be strange if the son of a legal wife and the son of a concubine were close. Aren't they all brothers?" Feng Yi laughed, "Brothers depend on the situation. Han Run has a good personality. He doesn't have any bad feelings for his brother, but his brother doesn't think so. The identity of a legal wife and a concubine is a chasm. One is the legitimate son and the other is not. The difference is huge." Changxing said, "If Aunt Feng has a child in the future and has a brother, will he be a concubine's brother?" "No, he will be a legal wife's son. He will be my biological brother." Changxing was confused. "Sigh, it's so hard to understand." Feng Yi said, "You will understand when you grow up." Changxing was tired after a few steps and let Feng Yi carry her. "Will brother Feng Yi have a son of a concubine in the future?" Feng Yi laughed, "No, he will only have a legal wife's son." Since it was the first time that the eldest son of a legal wife went to the Golden Scale Academy to study, Han Yu waited at home. "How is the academy?" Han Run answered with a red face, "The academy is great. The classmates are great too." Although it was only a day, Han Run clearly felt the difference between the academy and the family school. In the family school, it was difficult for the master to take care of the progress of all the students. After all, Han Run was not a member of the family. The master of the family school always looked after the direct descendant of the family first. Han Run could only keep his questions to himself and wait for his father or the master to solve them in private. Although the progress of his studies was not slow, the efficiency of his studies was indeed very low. Today, Han Run found that the progress of more than 20 classmates was almost the same. The content that the master talked about was suitable for them. Han Yu listened carefully to his son's daily life in the academy and felt relieved. Chapter 1242. Although Han Yu had just surrendered, Jiang Pengji trusted him very much. She even entrusted the task of preparing military provisions to Han Yu and Su Ku. Su Ku had been serving Jiang Pengji for a long time, so he was naturally capable. It was the first task Han Yu received after he joined Jiang Pengji's camp, so he had to do it properly. He was too busy with government affairs and had no spare energy to take care of family affairs. In the end, he had to ask his wife for help. After thinking for a while, Han Yu tried to persuade his wife with affection and reason, trying to ease the relationship between husband and wife. Mrs. Han was still unhappy, but since Han Yu had come to her in person, she could only swallow her anger and plan for the future. The relationship between husband and wife seemed to be improving, but it was actually freezing. Mrs. Han belittled the Golden Scale Academy in front of her son whenever she had time, which made Han run very helpless. "Mother, there are many great scholars in the Golden Scale Academy. They can solve the students' doubts at any time. I think studying in the academy is much better than studying in the family school." Mrs. Han's face was livid. She said, "My son is still young. How can he distinguish between good and bad? The family school is accumulated through generations of meritorious deeds. It's the essence of the predecessors. The foundation of the family school is incomparable to that of an ordinary family. Isn't it a waste of my son's time to study here?" As a son, Han Run could not refute his mother. He could only endure and listen patiently. After all, Han Run was the son of Mrs. Han. How could she not know her son? Seeing her son's unchanging attitude, Madame Han felt even more stifled in her chest. Had her husband and son been poisoned by someone? Why were they so partial to an ordinary family? Although Han Run was not brainwashed by his mother, he was tired of being harassed day after day. Feng Yi saw through his emotions. After she asked, Han Run told her the truth about his troubles. "Mother, it seems that you still insist that I go to the family school." Han Run knew his mother's character. She was too stubborn. She rarely changed her mind. "I don't want to. Besides, the family school is far away in Jianghu County, and my parents are in Wanzhou." Although Han Run was young, he had a certain judgment ability. He did not know how much trust Jiang Pengji had in his father, but he could guess that Han Run, as the eldest son of Han Yu, did not stay in Wanzhou. Instead, he went to the family school in Jianghu County, which was thousands of miles away. He was afraid that it would be a taboo. Han Run did not want his father to be put in a difficult position. Feng Yi frowned. Madame Han's stubbornness was beyond his imagination. In the short term, it wouldn't affect Han Run, but in the long run, it would inevitably distract him from his studies. Feng Yi said, "There's no rush in this matter. You should stabilize your mother first." He informed his father, Feng Zhen, about this matter. Coincidentally, Feng Zhen was also busy and directly threw him to Wei Ci. Wei Ci, Feng Yi was very embarrassed. This was a child's trifling matter, and it had taken up their precious time. She really felt bad about it. Wei Ci said, "It's hard for an upright official to settle a family dispute. It's better to let the whole family talk it over." Feng Yi frowned. Han Run wouldn't have to be stuck between his parents if he could solve the problem by being honest with them. Feng Yi returned empty-handed, but Wei Ci took this matter to heart. It's better to destroy 10 temples than to ruin a marriage. However, Madame Han is a disaster after all. We should find a way to separate her from Wen Bin and his son. Wei Ci frowned. He had reminded Han Yu earlier because he wanted Han Yu to handle the family affairs by himself. However, Han Yu was different from him. He was reborn. Even if he had told Han Yu to be careful of his wife and her family, Han Yu would not take drastic measures before his wife made an unforgivable mistake. At most, he would be cautious. Han Yu could delay it, but his eldest son could not. Wei Ci spent a lot of time recalling, and it took him a long time to find the memory of Han Yu's eldest son. The Jiang dynasty had been established for more than 10 years, and the old and new generations had replaced each other. Among the younger generation, the most outstanding child was undoubtedly the second son of Feng Zhen, Feng Yu. Feng Yu and the crown prince, Jiang Yan, had a close relationship. His future was limitless. Han Yu had many children in his family. There were 3 sons of the first wife. Their talents were not bad, but they were very disagreeable. Disagreeable. This was not what Wei Ci said, but what the crown princess, Jiang Yan, had said. "I'm just choosing a reading partner, not asking them to carry my sedan chair. They can't understand one by one. That Han Run is even better. He really thinks that my ears are not good. He insulted me behind my back and called me a bandit. So what if he's a bandit? I'm the crown prince now. He's not even a subject. Jiang Yan was the eldest daughter of the emperor. She had been appointed as the crown prince not long after the establishment of the Jiang dynasty. If there were no accidents, she would be the next empress. Her reading partner had a special meaning. Reserving the position of reading partner was basically reserving the core position of the next generation in the imperial court. Han Yu's sons of the right age participated in the selection of reading partners, but Jiang Yan did not like any of them. Han Yu's eldest son, Han Run, had been despised by Jiang Yan for a long time. After that, Han Yu's wife's family participated in the rebellion. Madame Han and her eldest son, Han Run, were also involved and ended up being beheaded at the Meridian Gate. Because of Jiang Yan's influence, Wei Ci did not like Han Run. However, when he thought about the Han Run that he had met at Feng Zhen's wedding, he was obedient despite his young age. Wei Ci had no idea how he grew up to be like that. Now that he thought about it, it was most likely because of his mother's influence over the years, which ruined a good seedling. Han Yu neglected to teach his child, which led to Han Run's bad behavior in the future. What's so difficult about it? Just let him die. Jiang Pengji held a pen in her mouth. She raised one hand to put aside the processed bamboo slips and took a new one with the other. Wei Ci said. This won't do. It will be bad if Wenbin finds out. I was joking just now. Jiang Pengji took down the pen and wrote down the instructions. She said to Wei Ci, it's normal to be arrogant when one is born into an aristocratic family. Madame Han is relying on the power of her family. No matter how powerful they are, they still rely on me to survive and live. Go and check on her wife's family. I don't believe there is any aristocratic family that is completely clean. Once you find out, take your time. She cares so much about her family. If something happens to her family, she won't have the time to harass her son. Wei Ci was speechless. What a good move to remove the firewood from under the pot. Wei Ci wanted Han Yu and Madame Han to divorce, but he did not expect his lord to be even more ruthless. Jiang Pengji said, divorce is actually a good idea, but it's too time-consuming. Wenbin will easily find out. If you hurt your friendship with Wenbin because of this woman, it will not be worth it. Besides, Wenbin is busy with official business, so someone has to take care of the house. Madame Han has a bad temper, but she is good at managing the house. It's good to keep her. Jiang Pengji knew that Madame Han did not like her, but who was she? Chapter 1243. The busy spring plowing slowly came to an end. Time steadily entered April. The audience in the streaming room was looking forward to and worried about the war that had yet to begin. Many of them were impatient and gradually forgot about it. Jiang Pengji had been busy with government affairs for the past few months. Apart from presiding over the spring plowing ceremony, she spent the rest of her time running around and inspecting the situation. The two most important things were the progress of the water-powered spinning wheel and cotton. These two pieces of good news eased the tense atmosphere. Since Jiang Pengji supported Hui Jun to work on the water-powered spinning wheel, Hui Jun devoted most of her energy to it. The remaining space was left for the twins. The idea of using the power of water to weave was a fantasy. However, after Jiang Pengji's analysis and encouragement, Hui Jun felt that it would definitely work. If it didn't work, it must be because she didn't find the right way and didn't work hard enough. With this idea in mind, Hui Jun often went to the woodworking workshop to look for Zhang Ping or Xiao Guang. This made Fu Wang's subordinates think that she planted 2 blades of grass for Fu Wang. Hui Jun knew about this and responded with a cold snort. She and Fu Wang were not husband and wife in name. Their relationship was limited to having 2 children together. Fu Wang could not control her no matter who she was close to. Planting grass? It was none of his business to plant a grassland. Of course, her relationship with Zhang Ping and Xiao Guang was not ambiguous. Zhang Ping and Xiao Guang also tried their best to help her practice and perfect the concept of the water-powered spinning wheel with the knowledge of the Mahists. Several generations of models were produced in the past 2 or 3 years, but they were not satisfactory. It seemed that something was missing. When the Lord returned with the troops, the woodworking workshop had a new member. This newcomer was incredible. Not only was she a rare female in the carpentry workshop, but she was also a student who had been taught by the Mahist master. Biyao was not good at government affairs. Jiang Pengji assigned her to the woodworking workshop and assigned her to work under Zhang Ping. Although Biyao was a woman, his lord was also a woman. How could Zhang Ping dare to be disrespectful? It was just that many jobs in the woodworking workshop were tiring. It was common to work overtime and stay up late to revise the design. Zhang Ping was worried that a young girl like Biyao could not handle it. At first, Biyao misunderstood the woodworking workshop as an ordinary place. Only when she arrived did she realize that it was very different from what she imagined. Although the name of the woodworking workshop was misleading, it was actually a department with a proper title. As one of the workshop owners of the carpentry workshop, Zhang Ping's salary was only 20 to 30% lower than that of the registrar of the prefecture government. Knowing this, Biyao finally felt relieved. Her ambition was not to become an ordinary carpenter. The office space that Jiang Pengji allocated to the carpentry workshop was very large. The periphery was filled with ordinary items, and the items and documents were more valuable as they went deeper into the workshop. Biyao was assigned to be Zhang Ping's assistant. She had a higher starting point, so naturally, she had access to more confidential places. After working with them for a while, she fell in love with this job. Not only was the place of work interesting, but the colleagues were also very interesting. What made her feel most comfortable was the way Zhang Ping and Xiao Guang looked at her. The latter's eyes revealed a bit of strangeness when he first saw her, but the former completely treated her like an ordinary girl, as if he didn't notice the ugly birthmark that took up most of her face. Just this alone was enough to win her favor. When Bai Ning heard his daughter mention the name of another unfamiliar man, he immediately began to plan. If Zhang Ping didn't have a family, he would be a good son-in-law. Little did he know that it was not that Zhang Ping didn't notice Biyao's birthmark. He was so calm because he had a problem with his aesthetic standards. Why did Wei Xi want to sell Zhang Ping to Biyao so that Biyao would not covet Jiang Pengji? Because he knew that Zhang Ping didn't judge a person's beauty by their face, but by their hands. Zhang Ping didn't hear it wrong. Zhang Ping's standard for beauty was the hands, not the face. Why was Zhang Ping so obsessed with his wife, Crane, and still single after so many years? Not only because he liked to be single, but there was another important reason. The only two pairs of hands that he liked were his own and Wei Xi's. Wei Xi was male, not female, and he was also his best friend. Zhang Ping couldn't possibly attack him with a disease, right? Wei Xi noticed Biyao's hands. According to the aesthetic standards of a mechanical otaku, the hands could score 95 out of 100. Zhang Ping was blind and had facial blindness. Biyao looked like a fairy, so he couldn't appreciate it. After a few days, Zhang Ping noticed the new assistant. As an otaku who was close to the level of a great magister, he felt moved for the first time. Looking at those hands, he felt a feather gently tickling his heart. The unfamiliar feeling made him confused and helpless. However, Zhang Ping's personality was not much more outgoing than Wei Xi's. He was obsessed with carpentry and didn't know how to express his feelings. In the eyes of outsiders and Biyao, Zhang Ping was just a qualified and friendly superior. One day, Zhang Ping was modifying the latest version of the hydraulic spinning wheel. This version of the spinning wheel was very close to the ideal state, but something went wrong and there were always problems when it ran. Zhang Ping and Hui Jun racked their brains over this problem until Biyao's words woke them up. After the modification, the hydraulic spinning wheel could smoothly use the power of water. There were no problems when it ran for a while. Although the single efficiency was still not high and it couldn't be compared to manual spinning, if one person took care of more than 10 hydraulic spinning wheels, the efficiency would be like a runaway wild horse. When the good news reached Jiang Pengji's ears, the whole streaming room was in an uproar. Their streamer usually didn't make a sound, but the slightest movement would cause a big problem. When they saw the ancient version of the hydraulic spinning wheel, the audience immediately took screenshots and rushed to the top searches. However, Zhang Ping wasn't very optimistic about it. Firstly, the efficiency didn't reach the expected figure. Secondly, the spinning wheel relied too much on water. Once the water flow reached the dry period, the spinning wheel was basically useless. It was too unstable. It was better to use the original manpower. In addition, if spinning was completely replaced by hydraulic spinning, it would have a big impact on ordinary farmers. It was fine to make it for fun, but it was almost impossible to promote it on a large scale. Jiang Pengji had already made a decision, but she wanted her subordinates to use their own brains. Then tell me your opinion? Although Zhang Ping was a technical otaku, it didn't mean that he didn't pass the cultural class. He just wasn't as proficient as Wei Ci and the others. I think there are 4 problems with this. First, although the people's lives have improved, the clothes they wear aren't expensive and the demand isn't high. The output of ordinary households is roughly equal to the demand. Second, if the hydraulic spinning wheel takes away the livelihood of ordinary farmers, the value of the cloth will decrease. I'm afraid many people will lose their livelihood. Third, the spinning wheel needs water to run. If there's a drought and no rain, the wheel will be useless and can only be left to rot. Fourth, the spinning wheel can make a lot of things, but there aren't many materials for weaving. The first 3 points were very important, but the most important point was the 4th point. There weren't many raw materials for weaving. No matter how capable the hydraulic spinning wheel was, how much could it do? If the returns couldn't match the investment, wouldn't it be a loss-making business? Chapter 1244. Apart from these 4 points, Zhang Ping did not mention one more point. He was afraid that he would offend Jiang Pengji. Nowadays, the land that was reclaimed was used to cultivate edible crops. She could not change it to something else for the sake of a hydraulic spinning wheel, could she? In a chaotic world, manpower and land were the most important. Zhang Ping faintly felt that his lord wanted to do something big and gradually weaken the weight of the manpower and land. However, reform was not something that could be accomplished in a day. It could easily affect the people of the world. Zhang Ping did not want his lord to be rash and radical, which would result in the failure of her hegemony. Which one of the reformers had a good ending in the end? Zhang Ping finished speaking calmly and waited for Jiang Pengji's decision. She said, "Shiheng's concern is reasonable." As soon as she finished speaking, the audience in the streaming room was the first to disagree. No matter how useful the hydraulic spinning wheel was, it had a milestone significance. Lunzi Zhu Lunzi, damn, streamer, don't be swayed by Zhang Ping. Although what he said is very reasonable, I can tell you that the significance of this thing is definitely more than that. Maybe later history will write this thing as a symbol of the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Yewu Yanling, although what Zhang Ping said is not wrong and he thinks this way because of the current social context, the streamer is not from this era. She comes from the future and should be more aware of the importance of technology. If Zhang Ping's words could make her give up on this idea, she would not have supported Miss Huijun to do this. Have you all forgotten that Miss Wanxiu made cotton? This is a combo. With the reminder from the big boss in the streaming room, everyone finally remembered that Wanxiu made cotton. A water-powered spinning wheel wasn't much, but if cotton was also popular, this combination of punches would definitely be able to stun people. If cotton was cultivated for a few generations, as long as the output reached 20% to 30% of the standard of their era, the impact on this ancient time and space would be equivalent to an earthquake. China had a population of 1.4 billion. Its land area was similar to that of the 5 countries of this era. However, the population of the 5 countries did not exceed 100 million because of the war over the years. With such a small population and so much land, there was still room for development. In addition, they also knew that cotton did not have high requirements for soil. It was not as delicate as rice and wheat. Food occupied the most fertile land. There was no conflict between planting cotton in other places. The audience understood with emotion and was moved with reason. They wished they could rush into the screen, cross the dimensional barrier, and personally talk to Jiang Pengji. Jiang Pengji didn't want to scare the idle audience anymore. She simply said, although Shiheng's concerns are reasonable, it's not like there are no solutions to these difficult problems. Shiheng, my current ambition is to let all the people in the world be able to wear warm clothes and eat their fill. This thing is very useful. Zhang Ping looked at Jiang Pengji. He had always been face-blind, but when he saw the expression on his lord's face, he suddenly understood what Wei Ci had said. Wei Ci had said that when the Lord talked about serious matters, her eyes would shine, as if they could see through time and see the future. Zhang Ping initially despised Wei Ci for being too artsy, but now he empathized with him. It was indeed glowing. Zhang Ping was blinded by the light, and Bai Yuexia's fangirl was even more intoxicated, unable to extricate herself. What does my lord want? We haven't made any progress yet, but it won't be long. However, the spinning wheels here still need to be modified. I'm afraid they won't be enough when the time comes. Jiang Pengji kept them in suspense. She said, it's true that this will harm the livelihood of some people, but it will be beneficial to the people of the world. I will also think of ways to compensate the people whose interests have been damaged. I will try my best to reduce their losses and not affect their family's livelihood. If you are timid and give up the happiness of the majority for the sake of the interests of a small group of people, then you are not a qualified lord. Zhang Ping nodded as he listened, but Bai Yuexia was keenly aware that the Lord's last sentence had a double meaning. For the interests of the majority, she could sacrifice the interests of a small group of people without hesitation? What if this small group of people were not ordinary people, but the aristocrats? Thinking back to her attitude towards the aristocrats, the commoners, and the ordinary people, this lord was indeed different. Bai Yuexia secretly glanced at Jiang Pengji's side profile. She only felt that this person was more upright than the men in the world. She had her own proud and unyielding character. Bai Yuexia and Hui Jun were infatuated with her. Until Bai Yuexia asked, my lord, you said that the spinning wheels still need to be modified? Jiang Pengji said, of course it has to be modified. When asked about professional issues, Bai Yuexia naturally had to clarify. What does it have to be modified? The production of a spinning wheel is complicated, but there is only one spindle. Why can't we increase the number of spindles? Jiang Pengji said, instead of using 10 looms to make up 10 spindles, why not put 10 spindles on one machine? Won't there be more silk produced at the same time? This simple sentence immediately caused the two disciples of the Mo family to be dumbfounded. What was this called? The Lord moved her mouth, and the subordinates ran errands? Put 10 spindles on one machine and let the spindles work at the same time? Was this possible? Apart from the spinning wheels, Jiang Pengji also wanted them to improve the looms. The efficiency of the current looms was very low, and they basically used both hands. But why not improve the looms so that both hands and feet could work? Zhang Ping and Bai Yuexia were bombarded with questions one after another until they were dizzy. They wished that their parents could give them 2 more heads. The key was that they could not refute. Although the Lord's questions sounded very naive and unreasonable, these questions were like an omnipotent key that immediately unlocked the iron lock that imprisoned their thoughts and provided them with brand new research ideas. But there was another problem. What was the point of them working on the spinning wheels and looms? Where did they get so much yarn and cloth to weave? Reality proved that there was. Another joyous event followed. The newly married Fengzhen pinched his chin. He only knew that his new wife was imitating Ancestor Lei and doing big things. Ancestor Lei had invented silkworm rearing, while Wan Xiu was planting cotton. Before they got married, Wan Xiu had specially brought some people to the ancestral home and stayed there to do something. She did not hide these things from Fengzhen, so he was more or less in the know. However, he had never expected that his wife would follow in his master's footsteps. She had killed the big thing without saying a word. A pillow comes when you doze off. Sure, your wife is much more capable than you. Fengzhen was dumbfounded and secretly touched his nose. What did he do? He was definitely more capable than his wife. But he could not speak carelessly in front of the Lord, so he obediently served as Wan Xiu's foil. Jiang Pengji looked at the card of information that Wan Xiu had brought. The content was very detailed. She laughed and teased, "With this, even if you can't be compared to Ancestor Lei, it's more than enough to earn the title of Little Ancestor Lei. If it succeeds, I will definitely remember your great merit." Wan Xiu's heart leaped with joy. Two good things were reported one after the other. Jiang Pengji was in a good mood, but there was always someone who did not have eyes to provoke her. Chapter 1245. Dongqing had a total of 6 states and 21 counties. Its territory spanned from the north to the south. The division of states and counties mostly followed the previous dynasty and was not based on population or land area. As a result, although Hu County, Shi County, and Hu County were counties, the areas of the 3 counties were not small. Hu County was even comparable to the smallest state in Dongqing. Apart from these 3 special counties, Hejin County, Langye County, and Ningning County were also independent counties. However, the size of the latter 3 was quite normal. Apart from having special military positions, they were no different from ordinary counties. Langye County had already fallen under Huang Song's rule. Ningning County was located in the south and had previously submitted to Su Bei. Ever since Jiang Pengji had gotten rid of Su Bei, although she hadn't mobilized her troops in Gongning County, the local aristocrats were very tactful and didn't dare to cause a ruckus. It was useless for them to make a ruckus. Jiangning County was attached to a high mountain range. Although it was a beautiful place, it did not produce much food. Jiang Pengji sent troops to choke off all the grain and trade routes in Jiangning County. She could starve hundreds of thousands of people in Jiangning County to death. There were many aristocratic families in Yunning County. They saw that Jiang Pengji was not someone to be trifled with, so they did not go against the law and fight her head-on. Instead, they chose to give in. Among the 3 counties, Hejin County was the only one without a ruler. It wasn't that Hejin County didn't want to rely on any vassal. It was just that the geography of Hejin County was a bit awkward. It was located on the pulse arteries of Wanzhou, Haozhou, and Sangzhou. It was an important position that could be used to attack or defend. Before the spring plowing, neither Jiang Pengji nor Huang Song dared to mobilize their troops in Hejin County. Once the troops were mobilized, it would be a great war. If the spring plowing was ruined, not only would the interests of the 2 feudal vassals be harmed, but the people under their rule would also be harmed. Wars could be fought at any time, but the commoners only had one chance to farm. If they missed the opportunity, they would have to endure hunger for an entire year. Apart from that, Hejin County had another significance to Jiang Pengji. All the members of the Lu family lived in Hejin County. The bad news Jiang Pengji received was none other than the fact that Hejin County had been raided by Huang Song's army and had quietly changed hands in the middle of the night. When the bad news reached Jiang Pengji's ears, she was happy about the progress of the spinning wheel and the cotton. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over her. Those who were familiar with Jiang Pengji did not dare to look at her expression. How did Hejin County fall? After the battle between Su and Pei ended, Jiang Pengji and Huang Song tacitly dispatched troops to guard the northern and southern borders of Hejin County. Neither side gave in to the other. The 2 sides maintained a delicate balance. No one dared to make the first move. They could only dispatch many scouts to investigate the enemy's situation. They had to grasp the military situation as soon as possible. Under such circumstances, Jiang Pengji did not know what the guards were doing. Huang Song had already sent his troops to conquer the whole of Hejin County, but the defending general was slow to react. It was already too late. If he didn't give her a convincing reason, she would definitely punish him. Although Jiang Pengji was usually easy to get along with, once she got angry, how could a lowly messenger be able to withstand her power? Without any hesitation, he revealed everything that had happened. After he finished speaking, the messenger soldier trembled and half knelt down to beg for forgiveness. The atmosphere at the scene was extremely solemn. Qiguan Rang, Wei Ci, and the others secretly glanced at their lord from the corner of their eyes. They were mentally prepared for their lord to flip the table, curse Huang Song's ancestors. Even if they lost control of themselves, they could still suppress this matter. Unexpectedly, Jiang Pengji's self-restraint was excellent. Apart from her somewhat gloomy expression, she did not show any extreme emotions. Hejian's Zhang. Jiang Pengji sneered coldly. Her eyes flashed with murderous intent. They really got away with it back then. The main reason why Hejian County was lost was that Hejian's aristocratic family, the Zhangs, took the lead in responding to the persuasion of Huang Song's subordinates. They secretly colluded with several aristocratic families to control the situation in the county. Later, on the night of the 24th of the third month, they cooperated with Huang Song's garrison troops. On one hand, they took down the Hejian's Lus, Shangguans, and other aristocratic families that were friendly with Jiang Pengji's forces. On the other hand, they welcomed Huang Song's army into the city. In less than half a night, Hejian County changed hands. When everyone heard Jiang Pengji's words, they were momentarily stunned. They did not know when their lord and the Zhangs had discord. Others had yet to react, but Lian felt that the Zhang's name sounded very familiar. After thinking about it carefully, his mind flashed. He finally remembered when the feud had started. This Zhang's name seems somewhat familiar. Could it be the Zhangs who forced my wife to become a widow and almost caused her to lose her life? Lian remembered that the Zhang's family was Shangguan Wan's ex-husband's family. After the feud started, could it be that they still bear a grudge? When Huang Song found out about it, he used it as a breakthrough point and sent people to persuade the Zhangs to change sides. If you think about it that way, it's not unreasonable. As soon as Lian spoke, everyone focused their attention on him again. After hearing what he said, many people had some memories. They followed the clues and dug up the old story. It's most likely because of this. Jiang Pengji secretly curled her lips and laughed angrily. We should have skinned this clan alive back then. Qiguan rang and Wei Ci coughed in unison, reminding Jiang Pengji to watch her words and not be so violent. If word got out that she skinned a clan for no reason, she would be hated by the enemy's navy. No matter what the situation was back then, it was an indisputable fact that Jiang Pengji had taken in the Zhang's young mistress who had escaped. Later, she had acted as a matchmaker for the young mistress, Shangguan Wan, and the military general, Li Yun. In the eyes of the Zhangs, this cuckold was dripping with oil. The grassland on her head could be used to race horses. Although the Zhangs had no solid evidence that Jiang Pengji had stolen Shangguan Wan, the whole world knew that Shangguan Wan had remarried Li Yun. From this standpoint, the Zhangs and Jiang Pengji's positions were natural opposites. Rather than helplessly watch Hejian County fall into Jiang Pengji's hands and struggle at death's door under her tyranny, it was better to support Huang Song. There was nothing wrong with this logic. Even so, if no one had secretly planned and promoted it, the Zhangs wouldn't have been so thorough. Yang Si looked at Li Yun with some pity in his eyes. As expected, it was better to be single. Shangguan Wan was also a victim, but if Li Yun met an unreasonable lord, he would most likely vent his anger on her. Jiang Pengji asked the messenger. Do you know who the lobbyist is? The messenger said, according to the secret agents, it's a strategist with the surname Cheng under Huang Song's command. According to the information obtained by the secret agents, before Hejian County fell, there was indeed a man who was dressed ordinarily but had an outstanding appearance and entered the Zhang residence. Cheng. There was only one strategist with the surname Cheng under Huang Song's command, right? Everyone tacitly looked at Qing Yuan from the corner of their eyes. Qing Yuan's father, Qing Cheng, was Qing Jing's nephew, and Qing Yuan was Qing Jing's grandnephew. The age difference wasn't big, but the seniority was significant. Jiang Pengji said disdainfully, if it's Yumo, it's not surprising. The Zhang's been around for so many years, but she's still half dead. Her brain isn't that good either, and she's very easy to fool. This grudge could only be regarded as a catalyst. The person Huang Song had sent over, the lobbyist Qing Jing, was the most important one. Chapter 1246. Jiang Pengji had a rough idea of what Mrs. Zhang was thinking. If Jiang Pengji 1 and Mrs. Zhang worked for her in the future, Jiang Pengji would definitely hold a grudge against Mrs. Zhang, and the Zhang family would never have a chance to make a name for themselves. Magnifying the conflict in the past made Mrs. Zhang, who was already arrogant, even more arrogant. It seemed that Jiang Pengji still held a grudge against her. But in reality, Jiang Pengji was a busy person. Not every Tom, Dick, or Harry was qualified to occupy her brain. If Mrs. Zhang didn't jump out to make her presence known, how could she remember such a small role? She couldn't even remember her, let alone hold a grudge against Mrs. Zhang. She really thought she was somebody. Whether it was Mrs. Zhang in Hejian or Han Yu's wife, they were like dust in her eyes. They were not worthy of her special attention. Although Mrs. Zhang is smart, she doesn't have a big picture view. Besides, there was discord before, so it was expected that they would be persuaded by Yumo to change sides. Jiang Pengji had a low opinion of Mrs. Zhang, but she had a high opinion of Qing Jing. By the way, have you found out the current situation of the Lu family? Although the second branch and the main family are not on good terms, the Lu family is more or less involved because of me. Qing Jing was a cautious person. He persuaded Mrs. Zhang to change sides and gave her a series of ideas to help her avoid the attention of Jiang Pengji's troops. Hejian County was Jiang Pengji's original nest. She had almost no contact with the Lu family in recent years, but outsiders would not think that she was completely cut off from the Lu family because of that. If something big happened, the Lu family would definitely side with Jiang Pengji. In a place like Hejian County, the Lu family was Jiang Pengji's most natural eyes and ears. To seize Hejian County first, Mrs. Zhang's little tricks had to be avoided by the Lu family. Just in case, the Lu family, the Shengguan family, and other small gentry families who were close to Jiang Pengji were also taken down in a flash. After all, Jiang Pengji was the one who brought the disaster to the Lu family, so she had to ask about it. The messenger was not very clear about the news. However, according to the spy in Hejian County, the Lu family was strictly monitored. Their personal freedom was restricted, but their lives were not in danger. Jiang Pengji said, "I understand. You can go now. If there's any news, report to me immediately." Everyone knew that Huang Song would not harm the Lu clan now, but that did not mean he would not do so in the future. Jiang Pengji did not have a family. Other than Lu Shi and Lu Zhao, her blood relatives were only the members of the Lu family. According to the mainstream thinking nowadays, people with the same surname and ancestry were a family. Even if the bones were broken, the tendons would still be connected. Unless it was a subsect, it was a single entity. If Huang Song wanted to use the people of the Lu clan as a political bargaining chip, Jiang Pengji's side would be very passive, and her hands and feet would be tied in battle. Faced with such a predicament, Jiang Pengji had to come up with a solution as soon as possible. This matter is indeed difficult to deal with. It's better to do it sooner rather than later. Do you have any good ideas? Jiang Pengji knitted her brows tightly, seemingly distressed. She asked the people sitting below. Hejian County was the main route between Wanzhou, Cangzhou, and Haozhou. Whoever occupied this place first would have the advantage of dispatching troops. Huang Song had taken over Hejian County and encircled the Lu clan. He had the upper hand right from the start. Jiang Pengji could only deal with it passively. Everything had to be dealt with one by one. Jiang Pengji planned to deal with the Lu clan's matter first. Although Hejian County was important, it was not impossible to take it back. Huang Song was probably also observing her reaction, using it to determine what his next move would be. The general's thoughts were relatively simple. Regardless of whether it was Huang Song or Lu Song, the clan that dared to imprison the lord would be punished in 4 words, *CK them up. It was simple, crude, and straightforward. However, this method was obviously not feasible. Or rather, this was not the method that Jiang Pengji had in mind. The audience in the streaming room had followed the streaming room for so many years. They had some understanding of Jiang Pengji's character. To use the words of many years ago to mock Jiang Pengji, she was a profiteer and strategist who had been held back by her profession. Even though her schemes were not as thorough and perfect as other strategists, no one could compare to her in terms of the overall situation. Didn't you see that there were often strategists who asked her, "What is the Lord's intention?" Lo Siji Lianmeng, betting on the spicy sticks that we have stocked up for the new year at home, the streamer must have a certain B***tch in her heart. Walking Shuaba, my head hurts. Every time I watch the streaming room, I have the thrill of being crushed in my IQ. Zhang Xiaoxiao's wife, let's start the game, let's start the game. Let's bet on what the streamer is up to. The person who guesses correctly can split the spicy sticks that Lao Siji Lianmeng has stocked up for the new year. The opportunity cannot be missed. Don't miss it. It's a once-in-a-year opportunity. Jiang Pengji's train of thought was well known to be unique and beautiful. The idle people were not top-notch strategists, so they could not figure out her thoughts. Many idle people simply chose to ask for help outside the game. They stared at the faces of the strategists, trying to see the correct answer from their faces. After staring for a while, many idle people wailed in the bullet screen. Qingchen, it's over. Boss Wen Zheng and the others looked troubled. This question is definitely beyond the syllabus. Xinyue, smiley face angle, this question is so difficult. Can the streamer give us some hints? Tangerine soft candy, if I were a member of the overtime team, I would definitely curse in my heart. I feel that the streamer already has an idea, but she refuses to say it directly. Instead, she wants to make it difficult for the big shots to guess a game that they can't guess. Guess your sister. What's there to say that can't be said in front of everyone? Why do you have to keep people guessing? What a waste of time and effort. Thinking about it carefully, it seemed that many leaders had such a bad habit. This made it difficult for the subordinates. At this moment, the idle people noticed that Yang Si, who was sitting in the second row, relaxed his brows. His gaze was deep and complicated. Ziyu Etienne, my cutie Rong Rong seems to have solved the answer. While the audience in the streaming room chatted, people raised suggestions one after another. However, most of them were not feasible and were rejected by Jiang Pengji. Everyone was in a dilemma. Even C.I. Marin, who was known as the flower of understanding, was frowning. He did not know how to deal with it. Is there no other way? At this moment, Yang Si stepped forward and cupped his hands in front of his chest. He proposed a bad idea that struck everyone present like lightning. He said, I have a plan, but I don't know if I should say it. It's better to eliminate this disaster from the root. Jiang Pengji said, speak. Yang Si said, I think, it's better to eliminate this disaster from the root. Jiang Pengji's interest was piqued, but her expression remained calm. She asked in detail, how? My lord was born in the Lu family of Hejin. The rise and fall of honor and disgrace are one with the clan. If the clan prospers, my lord will prosper. If the clan declines, my lord will lose face. Now that the Lu family has encountered this disaster, half of the responsibility lies with my lord. You should step forward to solve this matter and protect the clan. However, the situation in the world is grim. Not only do you have to worry about the clan, but you also have to worry about the people under your rule. You can't act recklessly for your own selfishness. Yang Si spoke in a rhythmic tone. Everyone frowned when they heard him. Their lord had always disliked listening to this nonsense. If she had such a good relationship with the Lu family, why would they not contact each other for so many years? She had never helped any member of the Lu family. Chapter 1247. Everyone was suspicious. Jiang Pengji patiently asked Yang Si. Does Jing Rong have any wise ideas? Yang Si changed the topic. In my opinion, my lord, you might as well bear the pain and form your own clan. Even if you are reluctant, this will not only protect the Lu clan, but it will also prevent Huang Song from harming them. At the same time, it will also prevent my lord from being afraid of the slightest thing. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Pengji decisively rejected his suggestion. Her tone was a little harsh, and her expression was quite decisive. Yang Jingrong, your suggestion is really heart-wrenching. It's very inappropriate. In this era where the clan was supreme, splitting the clan was the most important thing. Unless they had no other choice, very few people would choose to split the clan. Those who suggested splitting the clan would easily be labeled with a bad reputation. For ordinary gentry, there were many disadvantages to splitting the clan. First was the clan fields. The common land shared by the clan members was divided into more than 10 categories, such as fields for ancestral halls, fields for temples, fields for graves, fields for sacrifices, fields for charity, fields for learning. Every clan member could enjoy the benefits of the fields. It was somewhat similar to the family property that the idle viewers knew. If the clan split, they could not enjoy this part of the benefits. They could only take their private property with them. Second was the clan school. After the clan split, unless there were special circumstances, the people who split were not entitled to free education. It was not easy to study in this era. Learning was a benefit that only a certain class could enjoy. Splitting the clan meant giving up this part of the right. Apart from these two major items, there were many other public benefits. Why were the gentry so united and protected the clan? Because protecting the clan's interests was protecting their own interests. Leaving the clan as a whole, the possibility of an individual developing on his own was almost zero. Therefore, many members of the branch families of the gentry lived in poverty and had no choice but to accept the subsistence aid given by the clan. Even so, they still regarded themselves as a cut above others, because they were born to enjoy the benefits that ordinary people could not enjoy. This was their inherent privilege. Jianghu was not an ordinary person. Splitting the clan would not affect her, but according to the current mainstream thinking, splitting the clan was wrong. Wei Yan was sick. Little Rongrong's suggestion is fine, right? The streamer looks so fierce. I've never seen her so fierce. Tudu Feichio, the person above is still too young. The streamer's anger on the surface is definitely not real. When Jianghu is really angry, can ordinary people withstand that aura? They could feel the murderous aura even though they were separated by planes. Sovereign descends the world. Splitting a sect is the same as splitting a family, right? It's not a big deal. Wayichin Wang, how can splitting a sect be the same as splitting a family? The latter was just to live a simple life, while the former was to cut off the ancestral genealogy. In ancient times, if it wasn't for a very strong reason, people would definitely criticize them. The ancient people cared a lot about face. Many salted fish felt that Yang Xi's suggestion was to roast Jianghu over the fire. The bullet screen in the streaming room was in a heated discussion. Jianghu also had new developments. Yang Xi seemed to be determined to fight with her. He tried his best to persuade her, looking as if he would not let her go if she did not agree. My lord, this is an extremely urgent matter. How can you hesitate? If we want to break out of this situation without bloodshed, splitting the sect is definitely the best way. Yang Xi tried to persuade her again and again, but Jianghu said no, so he changed his method of coaxing her. After a few rounds, Jianghu's tough attitude softened. Seeing this, if the crowd still did not understand, there was really something wrong with their intelligence. Wei Ci stepped forward and said, I think that although Jing Rong's words are inappropriate, it is also the safest method at the moment. My lord is not only a member of the Lu family, but also the common ruler of millions of people in the 4 prefectures. How can you disregard the safety of millions of people for your own selfish reasons? My lord is really doing this for the good of the Lu family. At this time, she should cut the Gordian knot with a knife. Splitting the sect. After splitting the sect, Jianghu and the Lu family would not have much of a relationship. Huang Song could not use the Lu family to threaten her. As long as the Lu family did not make a big mistake and was caught by Huang Song, the lives of the old and young of the family would be guaranteed. Wei Ci jumped out to speak. Qiguan Rang and Feng Jin also added fuel to the fire. Although Feng Jin and Qing Yuan were a beat slower, they also followed suit. The current situation had become that everyone was forcing Jianghu to split the sect, but she missed the clan and could not bear to part with her kin, so she refused to comply. After confronting for half a quarter of an hour, Jiang Pengji still gave in under pressure. Gave in under pressure? Their streamer gave in? Did the sun rise from the west? The idle people in the streaming room were dumbfounded. When everyone ganged up on them, they thought that these subordinates were going to rebel. They dared to force their streamer. Unforgivable. They turned their heads and carefully recalled the contents of the conversation. Only then did they realize, this was AF** King's shameless show. Flips the table. Swoosh. Swoosh. Tudu Feiqiu, the streamer and her overtime team have once again broken the bottom line. It was clear that they wanted to kick the Lu family aside and work alone. How did it become the Lu family bearing the pain of splitting the sect? I dare to bet 10 packs of spicy sticks. The streamer's face is very sad, but she is already laughing in her heart. Gue kai guo fengxiu, hee, blossoming? It should be the blossoming of 100 flowers. I can wake up laughing in the middle of the night. They are still too young. Facing Jiang Pengji and the overtime team, who have no moral integrity and no bottom line, there is only what others can't think of, there is nothing they can't do. Lo Siji Lianmeng, I finally understand why it was Xiao Rongrong who came out to persuade the streamer to split the sect. Do you remember that when the streamer was fighting the Gaoyue clan in Sangzhou, she once designed a cute panda avatar? She accidentally let it slip in front of Xiao Rongrong that she wanted to use the panda image as a future battle flag or clan emblem, F***ck. She F***king wanted to work alone since then. Even the apprehensive flower, Wei Ci could not guess Jiang Pengji's thoughts at that moment. Only Yang Si guessed it correctly. Why? This old fellow has seen the answers in the examination papers. Tudu Feiqiu, the person above remembered it very carefully, but I think the streamer probably wanted to work alone from the beginning. If you pay close attention, have you noticed how many times the Lu family has appeared in her streaming for so many years? When she was most short of manpower, she never thought of asking the Lu family for help. She always left them in the lurch. The streamer is really sociopathic. We are far inferior to her. The idle spectators discussed and finally solved the case, finding the answer to the mystery. Jiang Pengji looked helpless. Her face was pale and sad. She was forced to accept the proposal of splitting the sect. Let's split the sect. I can't implicate the whole clan because of me. If the whole clan dies because of me, I won't be able to face my ancestors 100 years later. The news of Jiang Pengji wanting to split the sect spread like wildfire. The outside world had different opinions. Lu Zhao panicked and smashed his teacup. The matter of splitting the sect is very important. Sister, do you need to inform father? Jiang Pengji looked at the greenery outside the window and smiled. Chapter 1248. Split it from my sister? Lu Zhao was shocked, as if he was stunned by Jiang Pengji's words. If they split it from Jiang Pengji, wouldn't it be equivalent to her leaving the family with nothing? From an outsider's point of view, Jiang Pengji's father and brothers were still alive, and Lu Zhao was still unmarried. Such a division would be criticized. Jiang Pengji had her own reasons. From her point of view, she did it for the good of Lu Shi and Lu Zhao. She explained, if Biyao hadn't suddenly attacked Jin County and imprisoned the Lu clan, I wouldn't have to do this. Splitting the family is a big deal. I'm a female in the clan, so it's not a big deal. My father is the head of the second branch, and you're the only male descendant of the second branch. How can you just split the family? After thinking about it, I decided to split it by myself. If Biyao knows about this, he won't target the Lu clan anymore. Jiang Pengji mentioned the word female again. According to the current trend, women were born to marry. Although they didn't have to change their names, they had to use their husband's family name in front of them. For example, Qiguan Rang's wife's surname was Wei, and she was addressed as Qiguan Weisher. From this point of view, although Jiang Pengji would leave the family with nothing, it could also be regarded as marrying out in advance. Anyway, she was a woman, and sooner or later, women had to marry and become part of someone else's family. It didn't seem to matter much whether Jiang Pengji split the family or not. Jiang Pengji didn't care, but Lu Shi and Lu Zhao were different. My grudge with Biyao was caused by me. How can I implicate my father and the clan? Moreover, time is of the essence, and I don't have extra time to inform my father. If I specifically inform him to discuss the division, it'll be too late. After thinking about it, it's safer to start with me. Jiang Pengji's words made sense, and Lu Zhao couldn't find a way to refute her. Because Jiang Pengji always considered Lu Shi, his father, and the Lu clan. There was nothing wrong with her logic. However, Lu Zhao knew very well that the person in front of him wouldn't be so kind. Splitting the family was probably an idea she had been plotting for a long time. Huang Song seemed to be attacking her, but he didn't know that it was a good opportunity to help her succeed. Jiang Pengji saw that Lu Zhao looked worried, and she asked him with a smile. Zhao, are you worried? Lu Zhao said, elder sister, you're wise and resourceful. Others might think of one step, but you've already taken 100 steps. What's there for me to worry about? Although Jiang Pengji did not treat Lu Zhao as a blood relative, she still included him under her wing and protected him as a younger brother. There are some things that I'm not afraid to tell you. She said, although you like to have fun, you've also read a lot of books. You should know that there's a saying that goes, the tail is bound to be broken, but the tail is too big to fall. The Lu clan was very peaceful now, but that was only for now. How could they maintain their original intentions in the future? For the sake of eradicating future threats and also to protect the Lu clan, there are some powers that they shouldn't touch. The power of power was too great. Anyone in front of it would become unrecognizable. Jiang Pengji did not change because she looked down on it. Among the power in the world, she was only interested in the position of the Marshal of the Federation. She wouldn't change her mind, but Madame Lu might not. Lu Zhao's expression was extremely complicated. In the end, he forced a smile and tried to smooth things over. Sister, you've thought far ahead. I'm ashamed of myself. Others misunderstood that Jiang Pengji was doing this for the good of the Lu family, but Lu Zhao knew very well that it was a preparation for a showdown in the future. Since Lu Zhao didn't have any opinions, the others were even less qualified to express their opinions. Old Master Lu Shi, who was most qualified to voice his opinion, was still enjoying his retirement in Chongzhou. When there is no tiger in the mountain, the monkey will be the king. Jiang Pengji had the final say in everything. The matter of the separation of the schools flew out of Wanzhou. All the scholars in the world were shocked, and Huang Song was even more shocked and angry. He flipped over 2 tables in private. She chose to split into schools? Huang Song's eyes widened in shock. After a while, he smiled bitterly and said, Lanting's tactics are really surprising. She doesn't want to be at a disadvantage. As soon as Madame Lu fell into my hands, she immediately chose to sever all ties with her. If it was an ordinary branch, the steps would be very complicated. It would require the clan leader and the clan elders to open the ancestral hall and invite out the clan records. There would be a lot of twists and turns. Now that the entire Lu clan had been captured by Huang Song, it was naturally impossible for them to open an ancestral shrine and request for a genealogical record. Extraordinary circumstances require extraordinary measures. Special circumstances require special treatment. Jiang Pengji's announcement to the world's branches had a similar effect. Huang Song originally wanted to use Madame Lu as a trump card to restrain Jiang Pengji, but he didn't expect her to be so decisive. Cutting a tangled knot with a knife, Master Lanting's temperament is indeed incomparable to that of ordinary people. Qing Jing shook his head when he heard that. It was his idea to seize Hejin County and confine Madame Lu. Everything was going well, but who knew that Jiang Pengji would act irrationally and directly choose to split into schools to draw a clear line? If she were a man, I'm afraid she would be criticized for her actions. Unfortunately, she's a woman. Jiang Pengji had suffered for so many years because of her gender. Finally, she gained an advantage. Huang Song said regretfully, now we can't use Madame Lu to restrain her. Qing Jing shook his head and said, as long as Madame Lu doesn't take the initiative to cause trouble, I'm afraid the Lord can't do anything to them. If Madame Lu wasn't a gentry family, killing them would not be a big deal. At most, it would make Jiang Pengji hate them. However, Madame Lu was a proper gentry family. No gentry family in the world would agree to kill them without a good excuse. Thinking back to the past, when Jiang Pengji reorganized the gentry families in Chongzhou, she also put a lot of *T on them before taking action. Feng Ju asked, does the Lu family know about this news? Qing Jing answered, probably not yet, but they will know soon. Madame Lu's people were all imprisoned in the clan land. Their range of activities was restricted, so it was not easy for them to receive news from the outside world. They would only know about Jiang Pengji's division after a while. Feng Ju said, if Madame Lu knows about this, I wonder how she will react. His seemingly unintentional words fell into the ears of Huang Song and the others, and they had a different interpretation of it. Qing Jing asked, Huijie means? To instigate Madame Lu to defect? Madame Lu isn't as stupid as Madame Zhang. Even if Lu Shi's division leaves, Madame Lu won't fall out with him. They aren't that easy to drive a wedge between them. Feng Ju smiled and shook his head. There's just one thing I don't understand. Why is Lu Shi and Madame Lu's relationship so bad? Even if they said it was for Madame Lu's good, those words could only deceive ordinary people. How could a truly intelligent person be fooled? Rather than saying that the division was for Madame Lu's safety, it was more like getting rid of Madame Lu's burden. Feng Ju thought that the latter was more likely. Children of gentry families received clan education from a young age. If it wasn't for special circumstances, why wouldn't they side with the clan? It was rare to see someone like Jiang Pengji, who ran away when the situation wasn't good. What was the hidden reason behind it? Feng Ju took it to heart. Chapter 1249. Ever since Hejin County was conquered by Huang Song, the Lus had been living in seclusion. They refused all activities and invitations. Hearing that Jiang Pengji was independent, the Lus were calmer than the outside world. The reason was that Jiang Pengji and the Lus had little contact in the past few years. She didn't ask for help from the family when she was in danger, and she didn't help the family during her glory days. At first, the Lus were a little uncomfortable, but they understood after a while. Jiang Pengji was rich and never thought of giving benefits to the family. They couldn't be thick-skinned and stick to her. A few elders reacted fiercely. They were angry at Jiang Pengji's behavior. The Lus didn't enjoy the benefits Jiang Pengji gave them. Instead, they made the family suffer. Now that they were in trouble, they kicked the family away. What a heartless woman. A gray-haired elder sneered and said sarcastically, like father, like daughter. Lu Shi's parents, Lu Shi, were the same. They guarded against the family like thieves. Lu Shi and his wife didn't use their brains to think. If the Lus didn't support them, how could the second branch take over the entire bamboo paper workshop? Their daughter is also an ungrateful wretch. Although the bamboo paper workshop was built by Gu Min with her dowry, didn't the resources she used come from the family? Gu Min improved the existing rough papermaking technology. The bamboo paper in Hejian became a treasure that the upper-class families fought to purchase. The profits were shocking. They didn't covet a mere papermaking and cooking, but Gu Min monopolized all the profits. It was unsightly. Logically speaking, she should donate some of the profits to the family. Only when the family was strong could they protect the family. How many years has it been? Why are you still bringing it up? Another gray-haired elder frowned. Although it's a bit heartless, Lu Shi did it to protect the whole family. Even if the family is divided, the ancestor is still the same ancestor. Money, power, and status were precious, but compared to one's life was more important. Why can't we bring it up? It's not like you don't know the current situation of the clan. The white-haired elder rolled his eyes, still angry. The assets of a mere second branch is much more than the public property of the clan. The family has nurtured them for so many years, but they don't know how to return the favor. There was a thunderstorm a while ago. The eaves of the ancestral hall have been in disrepair. And the ancestral tablets were almost wet. The family school is not doing well either. My great-grandson said that the food provided by the family school is not tasty. The gray-haired clan elder said, this is because the clan's harvest is not good. The clan's accounts have been in deficit for years, and the clan leader is also worried. That's true. But if Lu Shi and his daughter can help the clan, thinking of this, the clan elder became even angrier. The clan raised them, so it was only right that they returned the favor. Now, one or two of them were ingrates. Who wouldn't feel stifled? The situation is stronger than the person. Can you force the father and daughter? The gray-haired elder rolled his eyes. Moreover, it was Lu Shi, not Lu Shi. Both branches of the Shi family were separated from the Lu family. The gray-haired elder rolled his eyes. Besides, it was Lu Shi who separated the family. She is a woman. She has to marry someone. Marry? Won't her assets be taken by others? Do you want her to marry someone from the same clan? Calm down. People will think that the family covets the assets of a woman. That's shameful. Marrying someone with the same surname is against ethics. The gray-haired elder was full of anger. He didn't feel comfortable. The gentry family was glamorous to the outside world. But the resources were limited. It was impossible for every family to live a carefree life. As more and more people were born, there were fewer and fewer things that no one could share. This was one of the reasons why many gentry families were getting worse and worse. The huge population was not a help. Instead, it became a burden that couldn't be gotten rid of. The Lu family was not a first-class family in Hejin County. At most, it was a second-class family. The direct line of descent was still considered well off, but the side branches outside of the 5 kingdoms were very poor, and the clan could only barely help them. Lu Shi was the second branch of the direct descendants. His wealth was more than the family property. How could the other family members not be jealous? If the property was not the private property of Lu Shi and his wife, and Lu Shi was capable, some people might have forced them to confiscate the property. Jianghu was even more powerful. The northern borderline had been hers for a few years. Most of Dongqing's land had been in her pocket. She just needed to wear the imperial robe to rule the world. As long as she was willing, she could reveal her intentions and help the talented people from the Lu family. When one person achieved the Tao, even the dogs and chickens of the Lu family would rise to heaven. But now they had to separate and draw a line. It would be strange if some of the Lu family members felt comfortable. Why wouldn't they help the family members if they were so rich? Jianghu would marry someone in the future. Wouldn't it be better to help the family members than outsiders? Even if they knew it was wrong and shameful, they couldn't accept it emotionally. The two elders talked for a while. Their brows were furrowed with worry. They were worried, but Lu Zhai, the leader of the Lu family and Lu Shi's elder brother, was even more worried. Ever since Jiang Pengji and Huang Song stationed their troops in the north and south of Hejin County and confronted each other, he knew his family was in trouble. He didn't expect the trouble to come so quickly and so urgently. The Zhang family in Hejin betrayed the Lu family, which caught him off guard. Father, the children in the family are talking about it. Do we really not have to stop it? Lu Heng, who was about to enter his 30s, frowned, leaving a shallow wrinkle between his brows. If Jiang Pengji was there, she might have lamented that time and tied wait for no man. Lu Heng, who was elegant and funny in the past, was now a mature and steady middle-aged man. How do you explain it? Lu Zhai was worried. Let them be. Lu Zhai was much older than Lu Shi. His hair had been dyed gray. He looked slightly old. If he didn't have a good temperament, he would probably look older. If I don't do anything, my cousin will really break with the family. Lu Heng still liked his cousin very much. But after the incident at the flower festival when she was 12, her personality changed drastically. Not only did she not get close to him, but she also didn't give him gifts during the 4 seasons and 8 festivals. The relationship between the first and second branch had become as thin as plain water. Lu Zhai smiled bitterly. Break up a long time ago. That year, when my second brother went to Hu County, he asked his relatives to move out of the family land. From then on, we didn't have any contact. I'm not surprised that Lanting took the opportunity to break up with the family. As he spoke, there was a sound of crutches hitting the ground and many footsteps. What's wrong? You're blaming me now? Chapter 1250. Lu Zhai heard his mother's words and quickly got up to greet her. He humbled himself, but the old lord did not let it go. Lu Zhai had to explain himself. Mother, you are putting me in a difficult position. When have I ever complained about you? Lu Heng also stood up to greet his grandmother. With the help of the father and son, the old lady sat down in the seat of honor. She had lived like a princess for many years. Although she was old, her skin was fair and she looked younger than her actual age. However, her face was slightly mean and her eyes were narrow and sharp. She looked like an old lady who was not easy to get along with. She was Lu Zhai and Lu Shi's mother, the ancestor of the Lu family, and the old lord of Changsha. She was furious when she heard that Jiang Pengji dared to divide the family. She hurried to discuss it with her eldest son. She did not expect to hear the conversation before she entered the door. She was even angrier. I heard that the second branch has an unfilial girl. The old lord was old, but his voice was loud. When he talked about his granddaughter, Jiang Pengji, who he had never met before, his expression became sharper. She is over 20 years old and still hasn't gotten married. Now she wants to divide the family? As the head of the family, why didn't you write a letter to reprimand her? How can you allow a girl to make a scene in front of you? Do you have any rules in your family? Lu Zhai could only smile bitterly. How would the old lord know the influence of the Lu family in the outside world? The ancestors of the Lu family had been glorious for a while, but they had been going downhill for the past 100 years. They were able to hang on to the second-rate position in Hejian mostly because of Lu Shi. Compared to Lu Shi, Jiang Pengji was more powerful. What could the Lu family do to make her obey? Mother, it is not as bad as you think. Lanting separated from the family for the sake of the family. Hejian County is now in Huang Song's hands. Huang Song and Lanting are rivals. If Lanting does not separate from the family and cut ties, Huang Song will use the lives of the Lu family to threaten Lanting. If she separates from the family, Huang Song will have no reason to do anything to the Lu family. This is also the child's filial piety, Lu Zhai said gently. She tried to persuade her mother. Lu Zhai and Lu Shi's mother came from a prominent family in Langia County. She and Gu Min's mother were cousins. Because of her noble birth, the old woman had been willful all her life. She had developed a strong and reckless personality when she was a girl. She always liked to force others to do what she wanted. She lived a free and easy life, but the people around her were almost driven crazy by her. A recent example was Lu Shi and his wife. As soon as Lu Gui finished speaking, the old Feng Jun waved his hand away. Stop saying nice things to that unfilial girl. It's fine to coax an idiot, but what's the use of coaxing me? Although this old woman is old, her mind is not muddled. Lu Shi is clearly unfilial to his elders and heartless to his clan. The old woman's eyes widened, revealing the whites of her eyes. Just looking at her made one shiver in fear. If she says that the sect will be independent, then the sect will be divided. Where will the face of the entire clan be? Gu Min really gave birth to AB****. First, she instigated her man to go against me, and now, she has raised an unfilial daughter that disgraces our clan. The old woman was raised with honor. She also heard that her granddaughter was capable, but she didn't like her. Instead, she hated her. It wasn't that Lu Shi was bad, but it was because of some old scores. The old woman and Gu Min's mother were cousins. They were equally important in the clan. At that time, the atmosphere between the sexes was still very open. It was normal for unmarried girls to have a sweetheart before marriage. When the old woman was young, she liked young and handsome scholars. Occasionally, she would have trysts with them under the moonlight. After all, she was born in a big clan. If her reputation was too bad before marriage, it would affect her marriage, so she was very careful. However, Gu Min's mother, her cousin, was more skillful. During the marriage discussion, she tricked her and let others see her exchanging a token with a scholar. This matter was fatal, but it also affected her status. The marriage discussion went wrong. In the end, Gu Min's mother married into the Langia Gu clan and became the wife of the clan. Everyone envied her, but she married a son of the Lu clan in Hejin County. After marriage, she was not as good as her cousin. She never thought that the daughter of her cousin, Gu Min, would marry her second son, Lu Shi. Every time she saw her daughter-in-law, she felt as if there was a fishbone stuck in her throat. She didn't like Gu Min either. In her opinion, Gu Min was the culprit who instigated the separation between her and Lu Shi. After Gu Min got married, she became restless. She started a business and showed her face in public. Her business was big, but she didn't want to give it to her elders. She had been Gu Min's mother-in-law for many years. Every time she asked that woman to set a rule, Gu Min was unwilling. She had never seen such an unfilial woman. When Gu Min passed away, she secretly clapped her hands and cheered. With Gu Min's death, her filial and obedient son would definitely come back. She couldn't bear to see her son dying for Gu Min. She specially found a woman who looked like Gu Min and planned to make her Lu Shi's concubine. Under her secretly instigation and support, the woman stole the inheritance left by Gu Min and bullied the child she left behind. A dead person was dead, and a man was a man. Which man would push away a beautiful woman for a dead person? However, things didn't go as he wished. Not only did Lu Shi reject her, but he also changed his temperament. He whipped the woman to death in front of all the servants in the courtyard and skinned her. The old woman heard the news and was so scared that her legs turned to jelly. After that, Lu Shi moved out of the clan land and opened a residence. He didn't even take a step in the door. The old woman almost vomited to death. Whether it was her cousin, Gu Min, or Lu Shi, all three women of the same lineage, none of them could get along with her. The old woman became even angrier when she thought of the trauma and grievances she had suffered all these years. Now, Lu Shi wanted to separate from the clan. He must have grown up. Lu Zhai frowned and said unhappily, "Mother, no matter what, Lanting is still your granddaughter." Ever since Lu Zhai and his brothers got married, their mother became more and more domineering and willful. She wanted to control everyone and everything. When their father was still alive, he could still restrain her. After their father was gone, she became more and more lawless. Now, she didn't care about the old lord's identity and age. She called her granddaughter, B*TCH, in front of everyone. Lu Zhai was a gentleman and couldn't stand such filthy words. The old lord said stubbornly, "I don't have such an unfilial granddaughter." Lu Zhai was a grandfather and almost 5 years old, but he still couldn't do anything to his mother. The old lord scolded Lu Zhai. Lu Zhai was already in a bad mood. Faced with his unreasonable mother, he simply retorted, "Mother, the situation is better than the person. Lanting is a duke with millions of strong soldiers, not a granddaughter who listens to your scolding. To put it bluntly, she controls the life and death of our clan. We are meat on the chopping block. We can only accept her independence without any complaints." When the old lord heard this, he suppressed his anger in his heart. Chapter 1251. The sudden change shocked Lu Zhai and his son. It was as if their hearts had skipped a beat. The two hurried over to support the old Fengjun. When the old Fengjun saw their nervous expressions, she couldn't help but reveal a comfortable smile. She knew that as the respected old Fengjun of the entire family, no one dared to anger her or go against her wishes, much less her own son and grandson. As long as she was still in the Lu residence, she was the old Feng Jun that everyone respected and respected. Thinking of this, the old Feng Jun felt much better. Her soaring blood pressure and anger started to decrease. She shakily reached out to grab her son's hand. She was about to smile and say something, but she was too angry. A mouthful of thick phlegm surged up her throat. It rolled and didn't want to slide down, and she couldn't spit it out. After a while, her ruddy face turned pale, and then from pale to dark purple. The color quickly deepened. Her thin and sharp eyes widened, and the whites of her eyes were frightening. Her change was more serious than Lu Zhai and his son. They were even more afraid. Lu Heng said with a pale face, "Father, grandmother is probably blocked by phlegm." Lu Zhai hurriedly told his son to hurry the doctor. He helped the old Feng Jun stand up and patted her back. Because the old Feng Jun was having trouble breathing, she let out a heavy and hurried sound like a wild beast. Lu Zhai was so anxious that his eyes turned red. His hands and feet trembled, as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. No matter how bad his mother was, the person in front of him was his birth mother. Now that she was in such pain, of course he didn't feel good. Lu Heng didn't care about his appearance. He lifted his clothes and jogged to invite the doctor to the main hall. When he arrived, he found a group of servants standing outside the main hall with their hands raised. Their expressions were sorrowful. Lu Heng's heart skipped a beat. His lips trembled and his legs went weak as he entered the room. The tip of his feet stepped on his clothes and he stumbled forward. The doctor carried a medical box and followed in. He saw Lu Heng almost fall and subconsciously reached out to pull him up. This. The doctor was a guest official that Lu Zhai had specially invited to the old Feng Jun's residence. He was in charge of diagnosing and treating the old Feng Jun. If the old Feng Jun had a headache or fever, he would be in charge of it. He was also the one who understood the old Feng Jun's condition the best. Old Feng Jun, this is. Lu Gui hugged the old Feng Jun with a pale face. She only came back to her senses when she heard the doctor's voice. Quick, let mother take a look. Lu Zhai urged the doctor. The doctor glanced at the old Feng Jun's appearance and came to a conclusion in his heart. He still went forward to take the old Feng Jun's pulse. The skin he touched was much lower than that of an ordinary person. There was no pulse at all. The doctor lifted the old Feng Jun's eyelids to look at his pupils. "Master, my condolences." He shook his head with a regretful expression. Lu Zhai's age could be considered to have entered old age, and it was best not to be struck by a sudden mishap and have one funeral turn into two. Thus, the doctor comforted Lu Zhai in a low voice. Old Feng Jun is also a person of 70 years of age. Now that he has passed away, it can be considered a happy funeral. Old Feng Jun usually eats a lot of meat and fish. His diet is heavy and he doesn't like to move around, so he often has headaches and dizziness. Just now, his anger attacked his heart, causing his heart and lungs to be damaged. His phlegm surged up, causing him to have difficulty breathing. "Master, you should prioritize your health and not have such a huge change in emotions." The doctor had been a doctor for many years and was very experienced. He only needed to do a simple examination to know how the old Feng Jun had passed away. The old Feng Jun had lived like a prince for too long. His body was not suited for great joy or anger. Otherwise, it would be easy for his qi and blood to attack his heart, and medicine would be ineffective. He had lived in the Lu residence for many years and knew the temperament of the few masters in the residence. The doctor did not believe that Lu Zhai had angered the old Feng Jun to death. Everyone knew how filial Lu Gui was to her mother. The old Feng Jun's reputation was not good. Everyone in the residence knew that this old woman was not willing to suffer any losses. Even if she threw a tantrum, she would make people accommodate her. In terms of angering someone to death, it was more likely that Lu Gui had been angered to death by this old mother. The doctor glanced at the old Feng Jun's sorry figure. The other's face was dark purple, and now it was dyed with a deathly ash white. His slightly protruding eyes were bloodshot, and a mouthful of thick green phlegm hung from the side of his mouth. On the ground, there was a puddle of food residue and acid from his stomach. Lu Gui only came back to her senses after a while. Tears fell from her eyes, and her teeth bit her lower lip until it was white. Sobs flowed from her throat. Lu Heng watched from the side with worry. Grandmother had already passed away. If something happened to father, the entire family would collapse. Lu Gui cried for a while until she was out of breath. However, it was better to vent her sorrow than to keep it in her heart. After a while, Lu Gui said in a hoarse voice with a muffled sob, "Send someone to hold a funeral and set up a mourning hall." Lu Heng was silent for a while, and then asked Lu Gui with a troubled expression. "If we hold a funeral, was grandmother's death due to a dream or, if it was a dream, then it was a normal death of old age, commonly known as death of old age? If it wasn't for this reason, then it was an abnormal death." It was a sensitive time, and the cause of the old Fengjuan's death would cause a huge uproar. Lu Gui raised his hand to wipe away his hot tears. He calmed himself down and instructed Lu Heng word by word. Mother fell into the hands of the bandits in Hejian County, and the people were attacked by the Huang bandits. They were anxious and fearful, and their old illness was triggered. Unfortunately, they passed away. Lu Heng's eyes widened slightly, as if he was seeing his father for the first time. Lu Gui seemed to understand his son's meaning. His lips twitched weakly, and he said as if he was crying, "If I don't say that, then should I tell the truth?" Lu Heng instantly understood his father's painstaking efforts. As long as outsiders saw the old Fengjuan's body, they would know that she had died an abnormal death. At such a sensitive time, it was hard to guarantee that no one would make an issue of it. Jiang Pengji was now independent. If someone intentionally misled her, Jiang Pengji would be labeled as unfilial, disobedient, and infuriating grandmother to death. Huang Song would definitely make an issue of it and use this point to attack Jiang Pengji, causing her to lose all standing and reputation. If that was the case, there would be no room for reconciliation between her and Lady Lu. It would be good if she didn't bear a grudge against her. Although Jiang Pengji had become independent, they were still of the same ancestor. If the bones were broken, the tendons were still connected. If they helped Huang Song attack Jiang Pengji, what benefits would they get in the end? Of course, if the benefits Huang Song offered were greater than what Jiang Pengji could offer, they could consider switching sides. However, the reality was that helping Huang Song was far inferior to helping Jiang Pengji. To prevent Huang Song's men from making an issue of the old Fengjuan's death, the Lu residents had to be the first to close the coffin and determine the cause of the old Fengjuan's death. "Yes, your son will do it now." Countless thoughts flashed through Lu Heng's mind. He didn't dare to delay and immediately dealt with the funeral. The old Fengjun was over 70 years old. In the words of a physician, this age was considered a happy funeral. The residents had already made mental preparations and prepared a coffin and other things. Although the death was sudden, the residence was still in order. The cause of the old Fengjuan's death was also spread. Chapter 1252. Suddenly hearing that the old lord had passed away, Fengju and Qingjing's thoughts reached a high degree of unity. Take the opportunity to stir up trouble. There was much to be done here. However, Lu Zhai was shrewd. He had long thought of this possibility and concluded the old lord's death in advance. If he had been a step later, the news of an unfilial granddaughter separating from the family and the death of her 70-year-old grandmother would have spread far and wide. Fengju sneered. It seems that the Lu family's foothold in Hejian County is not entirely based on luck. Qingjing put his hands in his sleeves and looked at Fengju calmly. After all, they are gentry. It is their nature and instinct to seek benefits and avoid harm. This was considered a crisis public relations. The Lu family's response to this matter was commendable. The corners of Fengju's lips curled into a sneer. There was a hint of mockery in his words. With this, the Lu family is completely safe. The old lord was the old lord of the Lu family. She had a special meaning to the entire clan. Her funeral was also the funeral of the entire clan. Huang Song did not want to be criticized by the world and be reviled in the history books. Naturally, he could not let anything happen to the Lu family during the funeral of the old lord. This was a disguised death exemption medallion. Qing Jing's eyelids darkened. He said coldly, "It's just a petty trick." He had done a good job of creating a funeral crisis. He had indirectly attacked Huang Song and protected himself. At the same time, he had expressed his goodwill to Jiang Pengji and helped her find a reason to send troops. After this matter, even if Jiang Pengji did not put the Lu family in an important position, she could not completely leave the Lu family to rot. When Huang Song knew about this, he immediately put on a bitter face. After a long while, he let out a long sigh and instructed his wife, Qi Chaolan, to help him prepare a small memorial gift. Lady Qi asked him, "Why do you prepare this? An elder in the family has passed away?" Huang Song said, "It's not that the elder in the family has passed away. Lanting's grandmother has passed away. As a good friend of Lanting, I am naturally considered a junior of the old lady. According to my friendship with Lanting, the old lady has passed away. It is reasonable for me to be present to mourn." A trace of astonishment flashed in Lady Qi's eyes. At the same time, she felt a little helpless and amused. Huang Song and Jiang Pengji's personal friendship was really good, but both of them plotted against each other. Their friendship was too strange. That old lady is the grandmother of the Duke of Lanting. Judging from her age, it should be a joyous funeral. Lady Qi's mind raced, and she roughly knew what to prepare. She asked Huang Song hesitantly, "At this critical juncture, the old madam has passed away. Won't Lang Jun be passive?" Huang Song spread his hands and rolled his eyes, looking as if he had nothing left to live for. "The outside world is saying that I took Hejin County, imprisoned the Lu family, and scared old madam to death." Logically, it made sense, but Huang Song still felt that it was a scapegoat. If it wasn't for Lady Lu's quick decision, he would have pushed the blame onto his good friend, Jiang Pengji. Perhaps Jiang Pengji's decision to separate from the main family had angered the stubborn and old-fashioned old man to the point of having a stroke. Unfortunately, Huang Song had already been splashed with a basin of dirty water. If he didn't care and splashed it back, it would only make things worse. Rather than that, he might as well be more magnanimous and take the initiative to pay his respects as a junior. That way, he would be able to clear his name. No matter what, he had only indirectly angered the old madam to death. It was not intentional. Lady Qi raised her eyebrows and said angrily, "Are there really people out there who can't distinguish right from wrong?" Huang Song said, "They're just some ignorant people. This little bit of evil can't hurt me." Lady Qi felt uncomfortable. "In that case, you still want to pay your respects?" If it were her, she would have vomited to death. Lanting is in Wanzhou. She definitely won't be able to make it on the 7th day of the first month. She won't be able to attend grandmother's funeral. I've been friends with her for a while, so I should help her. Taking 10,000 steps back, even if it's not for Lanting, I should still show my attitude. Dodging and evading will only make me feel guilty. Lady Qi's expression relaxed slightly. The Lu family's territory was covered with white banners. The morning hall was cold and solemn. Whether the clan members were sincere or not, they all had to show a sorrowful expression. The old madam's son, daughter-in-law, daughter, son-in-law, and all the grandchildren wore mourning clothes. The sound of sobbing and mourning drifted out of the door and walls. When Huang Song came to pay his respects, many people felt that he was really asking for a beating. However, the situation was stronger than he was. Now that Hejin County was in Huang Song's hands, no one dared to confront him head-on. In just a few days, Lu Zhai's gray hair had completely turned white, turning into a lifeless and lusterless silvery white. His entire body was also hunched, and his face had aged more than a year. When Huang Song arrived, Lu Zhai went forward to welcome him with the help of Lu Heng. He forced himself to cheer up and exchange greetings with Huang Song. Huang Song put on the attitude of a junior and knew when to advance and when to retreat. Instead, it made some of the Lu family members who did not know the truth angry but had nowhere to vent their anger. He came to pay his respects today, not just to light a stick of incense. He also wrote an elegiac oration for the old madam. Of course, this elegiac oration was not written by him. He had asked Nye Sun to write it for him. His literary talent was definitely not inferior to that of a famous Confucian scholar. After the elegiac oration, many people were sad and moved. The old madam's daughter and daughter-in-law wept with tears in their eyes. They were so sad that they could not restrain themselves. With this, Huang Song fiercely made a good impression on them and washed away most of the blame he carried. No matter how evil others were, they could not say it out loud. Since Hejin County had fallen, Jiang Pengji had sent troops to the front line. When the news of the old madam's death reached her, Jiang Pengji was stunned for a moment. She had no impression of this cheap grandmother. She rummaged through Lu Shi's memory and barely found some scattered memories in the corner. According to Lu Shi's memory, this grandmother treated people extremely harshly and coldly. She also hated Lu Shi to the core. If there were not people around, she really wanted to reply that it was none of her business. She thought so in her heart, but her face showed a horrified and sorrowful expression. Her body swayed unsteadily. "My lord, my condolences, my lord." Jiang Pengji's acting was too exquisite. No one could see any flaws. No matter how they racked their brains, they could not think of a lord who could be so calm even after her grandmother died. Oh, wasn't that her grandmother? But others did not know about this. Jiang Pengji's blood drained. Her eyes were bloodshot and filled with tears. She raised her hand to grab Wei Si's hand and held it tightly. It seemed that she wanted to use it to draw strength that made him feel at ease. Her lips moved a little. Her eyes rolled back and she fainted. It was not that Jiang Pengji's acting skills were not good enough. It was just that she had no similar experience and was afraid that her acting would not be realistic. In her previous life, she did not even know who her biological parents were. When she was a few years old, she was sent by her adoptive parents to the Special Military Academy to be trained as a genetic warrior. Jiang Pengji's rationality was perfect, but there were still many gaps in her emotional side. She really could not do it if she was asked to vividly play a filial little girl who had lost her grandmother. With a sudden inspiration, Jiang Pengji used the great technique of pretending to be unconscious that had worked every time. Her fainting scared the hell out of people. Qiguan Rang took advantage of the chaos to secretly take Jiang Pengji's pulse. After confirming her pulse, he released his hand without a trace. Very good, it was not a slippery pulse. Although Qiguan Rang had been looking forward to seeing the young lord's shadow, if the lord was pregnant at this juncture, he would really be in trouble. It was fine as long as she was not pregnant. Jiang Pengji's heart was beating like a drum. Chapter 1253. Of course, Qiguan Rang did not realize that she was pretending to be unconscious. Not only him, but the others were also shocked. Not long after, the news that Jiang Pengji had suffered a huge blow from her grandmother's death and was bedridden spread, causing panic among the people. She was the leader and backbone of the entire force. Many people began to panic when she suddenly fell seriously ill and fell into a coma. After the military doctor's diagnosis, he said that Jiang Pengji was too grief-stricken, which triggered a chronic illness. If she was not young, she might not have woken up. For the sake of her health and life, it was not advisable to rush about or worry about things. She should rest and recuperate in peace for 3 to 5 months. 3 to 5 months? It would be too late by then. When the generals and soldiers heard about this, their hearts felt cold. Their lord fell ill and the morale of the army was disrupted before victory was achieved. This was not a good sign. For a moment, the camp was filled with a depressing atmosphere. They were worried about Jiang Pengji's situation. At this time, a few generals stood up to reorganize the camp. Fu Wang took over the military power and encouraged the generals. The overall morale did not drop but rose. Their lord fell ill, they needed to pull themselves together and defend the land so that the enemy would not dare to invade. The morale of the army outside has stabilized. Jiang Pengji, who was rumored to be seriously ill and unconscious, was leaning on the table. She was in high spirits and had a ruddy complexion. She did not look like a sick person at all. Fu Wang said solemnly, "It has stabilized. The morale of the troops is high and they are training harder than before." Jiang Pengji nodded. Her thoughts could not help but return to that day. Everyone thought that she was really ill and they were all very anxious. However, they were smart people. After a while, they realized that something was wrong. Their lord was as strong as a wild bear. Even if she was really grief-stricken, she would not faint so easily, right? Finally, they dismissed the idlers around them and waited for Jiang Pengji to wake up. Jiang Pengji lay on the sickbed and quietly opened one eye. She realized that her trusted subordinates were all there, staring at her with unkind expressions. She had overturned the car. The scene of the car accident was extremely tragic. Coupled with the merciless mockery of the salted fish in the streaming room, the situation was extremely chaotic. Tai Jiashi, streamer, have you heard of the story of the boy who cried wolf? Lei Dian Fuwang, trash streamer, what a waste of my feelings. My worries just now have all been fed to the dogs. Black Blade Master, I didn't expect you to be such a streamer. When did you become so good at pretending to be unconscious? Yizhang Man, shocking. A famous streamer has been fooled on the spot. Many innocent boys have been fooled, but they are still infatuated. Jiang Pengji's skin was thick and strong. It was impervious to swords and spears. She stood up with a smile. You haven't left yet? Everyone, Wei Ci said helplessly, what is my lord doing? Jiang Pengji choked in her heart. How could she tell him the real reason? She had a brainwave and a plan came to her mind. She said with an indifferent expression, grandmother passed away. As her granddaughter, I must attend her funeral, but Hejin County is already Bogeo's territory. If I really go to the funeral, I don't know if it's for my grandmother or myself. Bogeo won't let go of this opportunity. Qiguan Rang had a look of disapproval on his face. His thin lips were pursed into a straight line. The Lord used the trick of pretending to be unconscious to avoid attending the funeral. This inevitably left the outside world with the impression that she was unfilial and afraid of Huang Song. This matter is not difficult to resolve. My lord can send someone to attend the funeral on your behalf. Although the person can't be there personally, it's the same if his heart is there. Their lord had always been as shrewd as a fox. How could she be muddle-headed and use such a stupid trick? I know this, but Bogeo took Hejin County and scared my grandmother to death. We can't just let this go. Jiang Pengji's eyes flashed with a scheming and cold light. She smiled and said, what if the news spreads that I'm too grief-stricken and have a chronic illness that makes it difficult for me to travel? Bogeo's side will definitely be suspicious. Once the news is confirmed to be true, they will let down their guard. The army can take this opportunity to move their troops around and launch a surprise attack. Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect Jiang Pengji to pretend to be unconscious to be her strategy. Jiang Pengji continued, Hejin County has always been a battleground for military strategists. Bogeo has the advantage of the right time and the right place to station his troops here. He has Haozhou and Qinzhou. He can take advantage of the terrain and divide his troops to attack Wanzhou and Sangzhou. We can only respond passively. In addition, Bogeo and I formed an alliance to attack the Meng family in Sangzhou. He crossed the river from the lower reaches of the Song River to attack Sangzhou. He's already familiar with the route. Although Huang Song only had 2 prefectures, his position was a pain in the ass for Jiang Pengji. Huang Song had taken over Hejin County, so Wanzhou had become a close target for him to attack. Jiang Pengji had been operating in Wanzhou for so many years. How could she bear to use Wanzhou as the main battlefield for the confrontation between the two armies? Even if they won the war, Wanzhou would be destroyed. It would really be like the saying, after being busy for a few years, everything would be back to square one. She was now afraid to take action, but Huang Song had nothing to fear. In order to protect Wanzhou, Jiang Pengji had to move her troops first and further push the battlefront to Huang Song's territory. After listening to her, everyone revealed a thoughtful expression. What their lord had said was what they had been most worried about recently. Wanzhou must not be lost. They didn't expect their lord to be so meticulous and take the risk to make this plan happen. Salted Fish in the live stream room listened in a daze. Tudu Feiqiu, I really believed the streamer's words. Lo Siji Lianmeng, I've been stuck with a year's worth of instant noodles. The streamer definitely came up with this at the last minute to smooth things over. Inuajia Zhuga Qinma, haha, the streamer is really an elite and outstanding talent who lies with her eyes wide open. I'd be blind to believe her words. They had been following the live stream room for so many years. They knew what kind of person Jiang Pengji was, alright? Unfortunately, no one else could see their complaints except Jiang Pengji. Yang Si found a military doctor to diagnose Jiang Pengji. In the end, he concluded that she had been grieving too much and had triggered an old illness. She could only rest quietly and not tire herself out. It was worth mentioning that the military doctor was none other than Dian Yan's wife. Dian Yan, Meng Han, and Feng Jin were transferred to Tsang Prefecture by Jiang Pengji to prevent Huang Song from attacking Tsang Prefecture from Songhe Gorge and Jianghu. Han Yu, Xie Zhe, and Qin Gong were transferred to Zhe County and Hu County by her. They were on guard and cooperated with the main force to encircle and suppress Huang Song's forces. The main force was led by Jiang Pengji. Wei Xi, Yang Si, and Qiguan Rang were the strategists. Fu Wang was the commander-in-chief. Li Yun and Jiang Nongqin were the deputies. They were to directly restrain Huang Song's troops. Sun Wen guarded the northern borderline to prevent the herdsmen of the northern borderline from rebelling during the chaos. Su Ku and Feng Jin defended Wanzhou and Chongzhou. Bai Ning led the troops to guard the rear for the first time. Qing Yuan was transferred to Hu County. The troops seemed to be scattered, but in fact, they were all targeting Huang Song. After discussing a comprehensive plan, Jiang Pengji continued to be her patient. She was only responsible for pretending to be sick every day. Wei Xi took on the responsibility of representing Jiang Pengji to attend the funeral. He rushed to Hejian County overnight. Qiguan Rang expressed that he was up to the task. Wei Xi was not from Hejian County. He was not very familiar with the roads. Qiguan Rang was different. He was half a son-in-law of Hejian and had stayed there for several years. Jiang Pengji glanced at him with a faint smile. Her gaze immediately fell on Wei Xi. Qiguan Rang was silent. How could he forget again? Wei Xi was someone his lord had set her eyes on. Attending the funeral on her behalf this time was a disguised acknowledgement of Wei Xi's identity. TSK, the sour smell of love was everywhere. Chapter 1254. Father, I'm guarding the morning hall. You should go and rest for a while. Lu Heng whispered to Lu Zhai. His expression was full of exhaustion, and the green in his eyes deepened. When it rains, it pours, it pours. The ship is late, and the wind hits the head. This year, Madame Lu seemed to have offended the Tai Sui, with everything going her way. First, the Zhang family of Hejian and Huang Song colluded and betrayed Hejian County, causing the entire Lu family to be put under house arrest. Then, the old lord died of anger. His father also fainted in the morning hall because of excessive grief. Despite his illness, he managed to hold the funeral. Lu Heng watched his father age more than 10 years in a few days. The leisurely and elegant life was replaced by depression and illness. Lu Zhai was sick, very sick. When he coughed just now, he vomited a mouthful of sputum with blood. Lu Heng was frightened by the situation. He was afraid that his father would be too tired and die with his grandmother, so he tried to persuade him to rest. However, Lu Zhai was stubborn. Not only did he not want to rest, but he also paid more attention to the old lord's funeral. He asked about everything. It's okay, father, your health is more important. If grandmother is watching from heaven, she will feel sorry for you. Lu Heng said all kinds of good things, but Lu Zhai still couldn't move him. Burn more ghost money for your grandmother. Lu Zhai couldn't help but cough after saying 2 sentences. Her obscure eyes were dim and lifeless. In addition, increase the amount of money you donate to the temple by 20%. You must make the master of the temple work harder and recite more scriptures every day. There were many temples near Hejin County. Most of the local gentry believed in Buddhism. When the old lord passed away, the most famous master in the area was invited to recite scriptures and perform rituals for the deceased for 49 days. After working hard, Lu Zhai's condition worsened. In just a few days, he was tortured until he was thin. Seeing this situation, Lu Heng's eyes became moist. He didn't expect his father to have such deep feelings for his grandmother and to be so dedicated to her funeral. She was gone, and the dead were the most important. As a junior, Lu Heng couldn't complain about the excessive things his grandmother had done. Let everything go. He said, your son understands. I will definitely remember to donate 20% more of the money for the sesame oil. According to the customs of the day, the time to stop the coffin was different, depending on the financial situation of each family. For example, the time to stop the coffin was 1 day 7, 3 days 7, 5 days 7, or 7 days 7. For an ordinary family, the funeral could be held after 7 days. For a wealthy family, it was a little longer. For those with status and prestige, the funeral would be held for 49 days. The old lord's position in the Lu family was not low. Naturally, the number of days when the spirit stopped was based on Muqiqi. After the funeral was over, it was followed by a grand burial. The coffin was placed in the grave of Lu Zheng's biological father. The 49 long days didn't just torture the old lord's corpse, it also tortured the filial sons and grandsons who were guarding the coffin. Lu Zhang's body suffered even more with his illness. Just after the 7th day of the old Fengjuan's death, he fell ill and could not take care of the mourning hall. Hearing this news, Huang Song said in surprise, Lu Zheng is also sick. Really? Keeping vigil at the coffin was hard work. The seasons were changing and many of the Lu family members had fallen ill. There were not enough doctors in the manor, so they could only hire people from outside the manor. Huang Song took this opportunity to plant a few spies. The doctor who was treating Lu Zheng was one of Huang Song's people. The doctor did not dare to hide anything and hurriedly raised his hand to report to Huang Song. It's absolutely true. His body is severely damaged. He is weak both inside and out. Moreover, he is overly worried and depressed. If he does not rest and treat himself, I'm afraid he won't be able to last until the day the old madam is buried. Huang Song's eyes widened in shock. He blurted out, it's that serious? The doctor said, it's serious, not light. The Lu family has offended the Tai Sui this year. The old madam just passed away and the eldest son is on his last breath. Are they going to hold a funeral? Huang Song did not care if Lu Jing died or not. He only cared that if Lu Jing died, he would have to take the blame. Go back and treat him well. Use whatever medicine is useful. Don't be stingy. Even if you use strong medicine, you have to keep him alive. Don't let him die. Huang Song did not want to recite 2 funeral rites in a month. It was too unlucky. If Lu Jing died and he was blamed, wouldn't he feel wronged? Hearing Huang Song's instructions, the doctor did not dare to let his guard down. He carefully attended to Lu Zheng. After a few days, Huang Song received news from the scouts in front. Jiang Pengji had sent messengers to attend the funeral. Who did Lanting send? Qing Jing replied, Wei Ci, Wei Zixiao. Huang Song said, Wei Ci. I remember that he is from the same sect as Yumo. It seems that Lanting values him very much. After all, he was representing himself to attend the funeral of an elder. Those who were not his confidants did not have the right to do so. Qing Jing said, Zixiao's ability is like the moon. Although it is not as dazzling as the sun, it has its own brilliance. It is normal that he is valued by the Lanting Duke. After all, they were brothers from the same sect. It was basic for them to boast about each other in business. Of course, this was not a brainless boast. Wei Si's administrative ability was strong, but he was low-key and never competitive. This caused his presence to be low. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Wei Si arrived at Hejin County, travel-worn. Under the shadow of war, Hejin County became increasingly desolate and cold. The nearby fields were overgrown with weeds, and there were no farmers farming for a long time. Although Huang Song did not use strong troops to conquer Hejin County, there were still many people who hurriedly fled with their families. After entering the city, there was no one on either side of the street. The taverns and tea-houses were closed. The steps were covered with moss and thick dust. Wei Si was the messenger sent by Jianghu. Naturally, Huang Song would not allow him to come and go as he pleased in his territory. There were many interrogations and tests. No matter how many tricks he used, Wei Si dealt with them flawlessly. Because of Jianghu, the Lu family was isolated by the gentry in Hejin. It was very cold near the old house. One could faintly hear the sound of weeping spirits. When the old lord passed away, many gentry families did not come to offer their condolences in order to disassociate themselves. They all closed their doors and refused to receive guests, such as the Shengguan family. Even during the most difficult times, he had never seen such a cold and desolate appearance. Of course, there were those who were afraid and those who were not. Qiguan Rang's father-in-law, Wei Yuan, dared to come to offer his condolences with great fanfare. Wei Si rushed over. Lu Heng, who was in the morning hall, heard the news and hurriedly asked his servants to receive Wei Si. At the same time, Lu Heng told his father, Lu Zheng. Lu Zheng had been bedridden for a few days. His condition had improved and he had regained consciousness. When he heard that Jianghu had sent someone to attend the funeral, he was stunned for a long time. His expression was very complicated. Lu Heng was puzzled. Since his father had been seriously ill, he often showed such an expression that he could not understand. It's rare that she has such thoughts. Heng, receive the messenger well. Don't be cold. Chapter 1255. Receiving the news that Wei Si had come to attend the funeral on behalf of Jianghu, the Lus had mixed feelings. They knew that Jianghu's independence not only slapped the Lus in the face, but also made them the laughingstock of the world. They wished they could straighten their backs and kick her messenger out. At the same time, they were secretly happy that she had not forgotten her clan and knew to send people to attend her grandmother's funeral. Just as Lu Zheng had said, they were meat on the chopping block. The law of survival in troubled times was one's fist. Only those with a strong fist had the confidence to speak. Without a strong backing, whether it was the gentry or the feudal lords, sooner or later, they would be fat fishes on the chopping block waiting to be slaughtered. The people of the Lu clan had seen too many things happening in the past few days. The once lively clan was now deserted. The huge contrast made many people feel uncomfortable. Because of this, they also deeply realized the importance of power and fists. They obviously hated Wei Si, but they still had to put on a smile to deal with him, for fear of angering him. Wei Si did not care about these people with different thoughts. After seeing Lu Heng, he earnestly offered incense to the old lord. Lu Heng did not know Wei Si and did not know his temperament. He could only pick a topic carefully and secretly test Jianghu's attitude. Wei Si frowned slightly and looked worried. He told the truth. My master was very sad when she heard of the old lord's death. She was greatly shocked and accidentally triggered her old illness. She is still sick and can't get up. It's not that she doesn't want to come personally to attend the funeral, it's just that she is powerless. What? His cousin is sick? Lu Heng questioned subconsciously. When he realized that revealing his emotions would make Wei Xi unhappy, he quickly tried to salvage the situation. The Lord of Lanting has always been healthy. How did he trigger his old illness and fall ill? Wei Xi did not seem to see Lu Heng's inadvertent doubts and said worriedly, "My master is stubborn and likes to do everything herself. In the previous battles, my master had taken the lead. Although her life was not in danger, minor injuries and illnesses were unavoidable. She also refused to rest, and as a result, a hidden danger has been buried in her body. Before I left, my master was still in a coma. The doctor said that she would need at least 3 days to wake up." Jiang Pengji was a drama queen and Wei Xi was not inferior to her. When he talked about this, the scene of the emperor's serious illness in his previous life appeared in his mind. His expression was especially solemn and worried. Lu Heng's heart skipped a beat, immediately believing most of it. He asked, "Is there anything wrong with your health, Lord Lanting? I hope it's not serious." Wei Xi sighed and said, "The doctor advised that it's not advisable to rush about or worry too much. It's better to recuperate in peace for 3 to 5 months. 3 to 5 months? Lu Heng felt a chill in his heart. 3 to 5 months of recuperation was already a very serious illness. The two of them stood at the side and talked. Their voices were not loud, but the morning hall was a quiet place. Although there were filial sons and grandsons who cried loudly, the morning did not happen 24 hours a day. Usually, there were several shifts, and there was a break in between. Therefore, their conversation was overheard by those who were observant. The clansmen of the Lu clan sat on the praying mats and silently recited scriptures. At the same time, they strained their ears in an attempt to hear more news. After hearing this, all of them trembled in fear. Lu Xi had fallen ill? He seemed to be seriously ill. It must be a lie. On second thought, she would have to be crazy to pretend to be sick to avoid attending the funeral. Wasn't she afraid that people would criticize her? Wei Xi asked, "Why didn't I see Master Lu just now?" The Lu clan was still Lu Zhang's housekeeper, so Wei Xi used seniority to call him Master Lu. If it was Lu Heng who was in charge, the way he addressed him would be different. At the mention of his father, Lu Zhang's expression became gloomy. He said, "Father has been working hard for grandmother's funeral. He fell ill a few days ago and can only be sustained with medicine." Wei Xi sighed and said, "These are troubled times. After this period of time, there will be joy after extreme misfortune." Lu Heng nodded and hoped that Wei Xi's blessing would come true. Wei Xi came on behalf of Jiang Pengji. Not only did he light incense, but he also had to do whatever Jiang Pengji wanted to do. Lu Heng was extremely grateful to him. Although Wei Xi's appearance made him look unreliable, he was actually very capable. With his help, Lu Heng felt the burden on his shoulders lighten. He could finally take a breather. At the same time, the spies in hiding passed the news to Huang Song. Like Lu Heng, Huang Song chose to doubt it. Jiang Pengji left a deep impression on him. She was stronger and more energetic than a wild bear. How could she fall ill so easily? It felt like a mountain that had stood for thousands of years suddenly collapsed. Outsiders naturally could not accept it. Not long after, a secret letter was passed to him. The person who delivered the secret letter arrived at Hejian County right after Wei Xi. The contents of the secret letter were also sent by a spy planted in Jiang Pengji's army. When he opened it, Huang Song's expression suddenly became complicated. Lanting really fell ill? So seriously ill? According to the spy's information, after Jiang Pengji fell seriously ill, the military camp was in turmoil for a while. The furnaces in the logistics department did not stop boiling medicine. Different famous doctors were often invited to treat Jiang Pengji. The spy was meticulous and suspicious. He could not get in touch with Jiang Pengji, but he thought of ways to take away some of the medicine dregs. He also secretly sent people to contact the relatives of the doctors who had treated Jiang Pengji. Not every doctor would keep their mouths shut about a patient's condition. Moreover, it was related to the situation of the entire world. According to the collected information, these doctors had indeed encountered a difficult problem. They were constantly worried and frowning all day long. Of course, it was not that these doctors had good acting skills. It was just that the patient they had diagnosed was indeed a terminally ill woman. Jiang Pengji was cautious by nature. If she wanted to put on an act, she would go all the way. She would not let go of any details. The quality of the spy sent by Huang Song was very high. However, as the devil grew stronger, the justice grew stronger. Who would not fall for her? Someone, check what these medicine dregs are used for. Huang Song's heart wavered, but his suspicious character made him not completely believe it. He divided the medicine dregs into several small portions and secretly asked several different doctors to examine them. Everyone's diagnosis was similar. After learning about the situation, Huang Song sat in a daze for a long time, from afternoon to night. Not to mention him, anyone else would have reacted the same way. Jiang Pengji was like a mountain pressing down on Huang Song. For many years, she had made him feel pressured. He had no choice but to work hard and be cautious. They were about to raise their swords and fight each other to the death. The mountain that had been pressing down on him and suffocating him was actually going to collapse. She was kidding. Seeing him like this, Lady Qi could not help but ask with concern, "Lang Jun, what happened?" Huang Song took a deep breath and revealed an expression that he did not know how to describe. "Madam, Lanting seems to be very ill." Madam Qi secretly rolled her eyes. "You actually believe that?" Huang Song nodded. "I believe it." Lady Qi knew how suspicious her husband was. If he believed something, it was definitely not far from the truth. What's going on? Lady Qi looked surprised and said, "Lang Jun, why don't you invite these gentlemen to the house for a chat?" Huang Song slapped his forehead. Chapter 1256. Lu Shi was seriously ill? How was that possible? When Feng Ju and the others heard the news, their first reaction was disbelief. Especially Qing Jing, who had the privilege of watching Jiang Pengji kill demons up close. He knew that Jiang Pengji was afraid of demons and ghosts. He did not believe that her grandmother's death could affect her to this extent. However, facts spoke louder than words, and the evidence was irrefutable. In terms of skepticism, they were far inferior to Huang Song. Even Huang Song was convinced by the collected evidence. How could they doubt the truth? Suspicion required evidence. They could not find any evidence or flaws to overturn the fact that Lu Shi was seriously ill. Could it be that they could only rely on intuition or irresponsible guesses like, "I think"? "My lord, you mean, to seize this opportunity?" Jiang Pengji was seriously ill, and there was no leader in the camp. No matter how capable the strategists and generals were, they could not overstep their authority in many matters. Losing their lord meant that they had no backbone. They would be overcautious in both offense and defense. This was a good opportunity for Huang Song and the others to take advantage of the situation. Huang Song nodded. "There's only one chance. We don't know when Lanting's condition will improve, or worsen." Jiang Pengji was still single. If she knelt down, the power she had built up would inevitably collapse. Huang Song could not help but sigh at the thought of that situation. As an opponent, the more unlucky the enemy, the better, but as a friend, he hoped that she would be well. Of course, before the outcome of the battle was decided, the relationship between him and Jiang Pengji was only hostile. Qing Jing said, "I'm afraid it's not appropriate to send troops rashly. It's better to test the waters by deploying troops." Feng Ju glanced at Qing Jing in surprise. It was the first time he was so cautious. Yumo is right. Lu Shi has always been treacherous and cunning. Even if there is irrefutable evidence, we should be more cautious. Huang Song was a little hesitant, but Qing Jing and Feng Ju's words made sense. They should test the waters first. If there was a trap, they would not lose everything. If possible, keep a close eye on Zixiao. Qing Jing thought for a moment, then added, since he is the messenger sent by Duke Lanting, he should know very well whether Duke Lanting is really sick or not, and whether his illness is serious. He can act for a while, but he can't act all the time. No matter how much information was obtained from the front line, as long as Wei Ci revealed a flaw, the truth would be clear at a glance. Huang Song agreed and nodded his head. Qing Jing said, if the Duke of Lanting is seriously ill, my lord will be able to sit back and relax. Wei Ci did not know that Qing Jing had set a trap for him, a fellow disciple, but he also knew that there were countless eyes lurking around him. In his previous life, he was able to control his emotions and ambitions, and his mentality had long been tempered. In an unfamiliar environment, he needed to be even more cautious. As the Lord's trusted aide, how should he react when the Lord was seriously ill and in a coma? Wei Ci was very clear about this because he had the template from his previous life. His mind kept replaying the scenes of the Emperor's serious illness and the constant treachery of the court in his previous life. It was only natural for him to show worry and worry. Although it wasn't to the extent that he didn't care about his appearance, he looked very dispirited and depressed. According to his habits from his previous life, he copied the scriptures for Jiang Pengji's prayers. He would forget himself as soon as he copied. Every day at 2:00, he would go to the morning hall to keep vigil for the old lord for a while, then he would return to his bedroom to wash up and copy the scriptures for his lord to pray for blessings. He did not know how many pairs of eyes were watching him in the dark, and when they would be watching him. What he had to do was to put on a good show. After a few days, an unexpected visitor came to the door. Master Liaochen? This person was none other than the old monk who had given him the phoenix fate that he had met by chance in the past. Master Liaochen was a monk hired by the Lus to perform religious rites for the old lord at a high price. The alarm bells in Wei Ci's heart rang loudly, and he quickly tensed up. Donor Wei, is it convenient for me to enter the house now? Master Liaochen looked at Wei Ci with a smile. Seeing that the vital energy around Wei Ci had not dissipated, his smile deepened. Wei Ci moved aside to let Master Liaochen in. At the same time, his heart was beating like a drum. He did not know the purpose of Liaochen's visit. Wei Ci knew very well that Master Liaochen and Jinren Liuru were both otherworldly masters. They could see many unscientific things. Others did not know about Jiang Pengji's situation, but these old fakes always had their ways to know. After so many years, Donor Wei's complexion is much better. Wei Ci said, thanks to you, I have been taking good care of myself these past few years. My body is much healthier than before. Master Liaochen looked at the scroll on the table. It was filled with neat and elegant words, just like Wei Ci. Wei Ci saw that Master Liaochen was looking at the scriptures he had copied. His ears turned red and his gaze became uneasy. Master Liaochen, are you here to reminisce about the old days? Master Liaochen shook his head. No, I am here because I have something to discuss with Donor Wei. Wei Ci said, Master, please speak. Master Liaochen said, Donor Wei, do you remember the demon that was mentioned before? Wei Ci replied humbly, of course I remember, but I have not been able to find any traces of it all these years. I am very worried. Do you have any clues here? Master Liaochen shook his head regretfully. I don't have any clues, but an old friend asked me to pass something to you. Then, Master Liaochen took out a jade seal and placed it in front of Wei Ci. The jade seal was unique and exquisite. It was 7 inches thick and 2.5 inches long. It was as white as snow and had a transparent texture. There was an inexplicable coolness to the touch that made one feel refreshed. When he saw the jade seal, Wei Ci's eyes widened. He straightened his body and leaned forward to pick up the jade seal. Isn't this the seal that Jinren Liuru uses to invite the gods to come to the altar? Almost every Daoist priest would use a Daoist seal during religious ceremonies and ceremonies. This was an important tool for them to eat, and it was used for stamping when they were handing out the forms. It was said that only the sealed documents could be received by the gods and they could command the ghosts and gods to do their bidding. Jinren Liuru was considered half his teacher. Wei Si's current skills as a charlatan were taught by him. How could Wei Si not be familiar with the seal he used? Master Liaochen said, a few years ago, this person fled to Hejian in a hurry. He attacked the mountain gate without any explanation and left this behind. A few years ago? Wei Si was shocked and asked, about when? Master Liaochen gave an approximate time. Wei Si's heart skipped a beat. Jinren Liuru fled to Hejian not long after they met. Jinren, although there was no evidence, Wei Si felt that the trouble he encountered must have something to do with him. Master Liaochen smiled, that person is fine. His life should not be in danger. Donor Wei, don't worry. Wei Si let out a sigh of relief. He looked down at the exquisite seal in his hand, not knowing what Jinren Liuru was hinting at. Master Liaochen said, in Taoism, the seal is mostly used to invite the gods to come to the altar. This jade seal has followed many masters and has long developed spirituality. Not only can it be used to invite the gods, but it can also suppress evil spirits. The Jinren left this to you for the latter. Wei Si was not a Taoist and he had no occasion to use the seal. After thinking about it, the only possibility left was suppressing evil spirits. I know a little about divination, but I don't know how to subdue demons or where the evil spirits are. Jinren gave this to me. What a waste. Chapter 1257. Jiang Pengji was the first to know that there was a jade seal by Wei Si's side. She came to his side through the yin-yang jade pendant and looked at his sleeping face greedily. She could not get enough of it. How could her Zixiao be so good-looking? Just as she was about to touch his face, her fingertips seemed to have been electrocuted, causing her to subconsciously withdraw her hand. Jiang Pengji shifted her gaze to the jade seal hanging on Wei Si's waist. She stared at it for a while. The jade seal was obviously for a man. Jiang Pengji was not worried that it was given to Wei Si by a prostitute. Although she did not know what a Taoist seal was, it gave her a sense of righteousness. It should not be an evil thing. The only thing that made her a pain in the ass was that she could not take advantage of him to her heart's content. Tisk, who's so nosy? Jiang Pengji stared at the jade seal with a bitter and vengeful look. She stared at it for a while but could not see anything. Even though she was experienced and knowledgeable, Jiang Pengji did not know what it was. She only knew that it was good for Wei Si. For that reason, she would not dismantle it violently. Before leaving, Jiang Pengji looked at Wei Si deeply and sighed faintly. She went back to plant mushrooms. She felt that she had a bad mouth. Of all the things she could say, she had to pretend to be sick. As a patient, she could not go anywhere other than her own tent. Her only pleasure was to wander to Wei Si's side to relieve her longing. She felt that she had nowhere to vent her energy. When she was bored, she could only chat with the idle audience. At that moment, she felt that the idle audience was so cute. Otherwise, she would be so bored that she would go crazy. Although the undercurrent was surging and war was about to break out, the old lord's body had stopped for 49 days. It was time to hold a funeral. Before the funeral, the filial sons and grandsons could see the old lord one last time. Wei Si replaced Jiang Pengji's position, so naturally he could see the old lady one last time. Although the body had stopped for 49 days, a lot of things were used to preserve the body every day. Therefore, the old lord's body had not rotted after such a long time. When the family buried the body, they applied some powder on the old lord's face. His complexion looked rosy and lifelike. If it weren't for the stench of a corpse lingering in the air and the fact that they could feel the coldness from the coffin, they would have thought that the old Feng Jun was still alive. Wei Si glanced at the old lord's corpse. At first glance, there was nothing, but at second glance, he felt that something was amiss. It was rumored that the old lord died from anger, but Wei Si had asked Lu Heng about the real cause of death. Because thick phlegm was stuck in his throat, he died because he could not breathe properly. This way of dying was quite special. It was very painful for an old man. On the day of the old lord's burial, Lu Jue, who was seriously ill, forced himself to come and send him off. No one could dissuade him and could only support him as he walked. After opening Lu Jue's father's grave and going through a series of rituals, the old Fengjuan's coffin needed to be buried inside. After the tomb was sealed, Lu Jun cried bitterly and finally fainted. Everyone was in a flurry again. Lu Jue's life was saved, but the condition of his body was worrying. The doctor also said that even if he recuperated well, he only had a few years left to live. Wei Ci left after taking a look at Lu Jue. He chose a remote path to return to the house and inadvertently heard a few words. The old lord was arrogant when she was alive and liked to be extravagant. The maids who served her also liked to use her power to bully others and secretly take advantage of her. Once she died, the monkeys would scatter when the tree falls. These maids lost their support and were now living a difficult life. If they were not sent out of the mansion, they would be transferred to a remote courtyard to work. Thinking back to the beautiful days, they were sad and reminiscing about the old lord's good side. One of them had cleaned up the old lord's remains. She said in a sympathetic tone. There was still a big pool of green phlegm at the side of the old lord's mouth. She usually liked to be clean, but I didn't expect her to die in such an undignified way. It doesn't matter if she is rich or poor, in the end, she can't escape death. Without the old lord's protection, we don't know where we can live in the future. The Langjun and the guest courtyard was so beautiful. If he was willing to accept you and me, wouldn't we have a place to live? When Wei Ci heard the first sentence, he frowned. When he heard the words, Langjun in the guest courtyard, he became sullen. There was still a big pool of green phlegm at the side of the old lord's mouth. Back in the bedroom, the maid's voice echoed in Wei Ci's mind. A thought flashed in his mind and he suddenly understood something. Could it be? A terrible thought appeared in Wei Ci's mind. The old lord was buried and Wei Ci's task was completed. The next day, he submitted his resignation to Lu Heng. Lu Heng said, I heard that Huang Song has been making a lot of moves recently. Can Lanting still handle it? Wei Ci sighed, there are many talents under the lord's command. Even if the lord is seriously ill and can't take charge of the overall situation, it won't be a problem to hold on for a while. Lu Heng comforted him, Lanting's martial arts are prosperous and will definitely be able to turn danger into safety. Wei Ci smiled weakly, but he quickly calmed down. Lu Heng watched Wei Ci leave, his eyes filled with worry that could not be dispersed. If Lu Shi really couldn't defeat Huang Song, what should the Lu family do? Should he find another way out for the Lu family? Before and after the old lord's burial, there were fierce confrontations on several battlefields. According to Huang Song's plan, he intended to place the main battlefield in Wanzhou and Hu County and pretend to attack Cangzhou to attract Jiang Pengji's main forces. Jiang Pengji's cavalry had an obvious advantage. If they mainly attacked Cangzhou, the enemy would have the terrain advantage and they would suffer a great loss. A feint attack should look like one. Huang Song mobilized his troops and sent people ashore from Gorge River between Qinzhou and Cangzhou. When he and Jiang Pengji formed an alliance to attack the Meng family in Cangzhou, he went ashore from Gorge River and directly attacked Cangzhou. Jiang Pengji ordered Dian Yan, Meng Han, and Feng Jin to guard Cangzhou and keep an eye on the situation around Gorge River. Dian Yan asked, military counselor, according to the scouts, the enemy is ready to go ashore. Should we send troops to stop them now? Gorge River was located in the middle and lower reaches of the Song River in Cangzhou. The river was wide and the water was gentle. It was very suitable for people to go ashore. Feng Jin said, there's no hurry. Let them in. Feng Jin had also received news that Jiang Pengji was pretending to be sick, so he was not in a hurry to stop Huang Song's troops at Gorge River. Since they were going to act, they naturally had to act realistically. This time, the battle line was too long. Feng Jin's side was not assigned many troops. If they confronted the enemy on the other side of Gorge River, it would be easy to be seen through. It was better to follow the plan. First, let the enemy drive straight in. Then, when they were full of ambition, they would reveal their killer move. Because Feng Jin had already sent people to send the people nearby away, letting the enemy in would not cause too many losses. Dian Yen asked, the enemy has a large number of troops. Letting them go ashore. I'm afraid it's not appropriate. Feng Jin shook his head. To Huang Song, Zhangzhou is not as important as Wanzhou or Hu County. Hu County has a lot of land. If we can take it, we won't have to worry about winter food after the autumn harvest. Wanzhou is where the Lord's foundation is. Any loss will shake the morale of the army. In comparison, although Zhangzhou has horses, it takes time to build up the cavalry. War horses can't be used as soon as they are brought in. The benefits won't be great in a short period of time. Meng Hun said, military counselor, do you mean that the number of troops attacking Zhangzhou is not as large as it seems? Feng Jin laughed. I'm afraid it's a trick to fool people. If they are really frightened, we will be the first to be exposed. After all, Feng Jin did not have many troops on his side. Chapter 1258. The Song River meandered from north to south, flowed through the gorge, and finally merged into the sea. The source of the river was turbulent and steep, densely covered with reefs. As it passed through the middle and lower reaches, the water became gentle, and the river became wider. There were many ferries and ships, and it was adjacent to Haozhou and Qinzhou. It was the best springboard for Huang Song to attack Zhangzhou. However, as Feng Jin had analyzed, Zhangzhou was of little value to Huang Song. It was tasteless, but it would be a pity to abandon it. Its only purpose was to attract and mislead Jiang Pengji's firepower. It seemed to be a direct attack on Zhangzhou, but it was actually intended for Wanzhou and Hu County. If Jiang Pengji's main force could be lured to Zhangzhou, then Huang Song's real main force could take the opportunity to attack the hinterland of Jiang Pengji's power. Everyone knew this, but war was about what was real and what was fake. Not only did it depend on logistics and financial resources, but it also depended on psychology to see who could be deceived. Feng Jin was a clear-headed and rational person. Naturally, he would not be fooled so easily. Dian Yen, dressed in armor, rushed into the main tent. Meng Hun and Feng Jin were discussing something with their heads lowered. There was a huge sand table in front of them. The current sand table was the simplest, but after their lord's improvements, it became three-dimensional and exquisite. The terrain of the mountains and rivers could be seen at a glance. The sand table in front of Meng Hun and Feng Jin took 2 to 3 months to collect and make. Just by looking at the sand table, Feng Jin could simulate the enemy's further marching routes and movements in his mind. Dian Yen barged in without permission. His expression was gloomy. Feng Jin put down the deduction model. Is there any progress at the front? Dian Yen walked too hastily. The armor he wore was so heavy that he was panting heavily when he spoke. He said, military counselor, things are not good. The scouts at the front reported that the enemy crossed the river for 4 consecutive days. There are 20,000 troops and horses, a total of 80,000. Didn't they say that Zhangzhou was just a feint by Huang Song? Why did he send 80,000 troops and horses? Even if more than 50% of the 80,000 troops were Marines, there would still be 40,000 elites left. 40,000 elites was not a lot, but they did not have that many troops stationed in Zhangzhou. They might not be able to resist. After hearing this, Feng Jin's eyes flashed with surprise. According to his understanding of the entire occupation, it was impossible for Huang Song to send so many troops to Zhangzhou. He had only occupied 2 prefectures and did not have a lot of troops. Just by dividing his troops, he already had as many as 80,000. Was he planning to bet on Zhangzhou? Feng Jin frowned, and Meng Hun, who was beside him, also revealed a solemn expression. Dian Yen said in a panic, military advisor, what should we do now? Jiang Pengji only sent 30,000 elite troops to Zhangzhou. Feng Jin calculated the provisions and with her consent, he recruited another 20,000 water soldiers locally. The total number was 50,000. Huang Song had suddenly dispatched 80,000 soldiers, and the pressure on Feng Jin's side had suddenly increased. Meng Hun suggested, "Why don't we write a letter to the Lord and ask for more troops?" Feng Jin flatly refused. "We can't. If we send more troops to Cangzhou, Wanzhou, and Hu County will be in danger. In order to save on food, material resources, and financial resources, his lord had always taken the route of elite soldiers. This time, Jiang Pengji had only agreed to the recruitment of water soldiers after Feng Jin had persuaded her in every possible way. If they asked for reinforcements, the forces defending Wanzhou and Hu County would be weak. That would be courting death. Feng Jin said, "Even if we lose Cangzhou, nothing must happen to Wanzhou and Hu County." When Meng Hun and Dian Yan saw this, they immediately shut their mouths tightly and no longer spoke. They both knew that Feng Jin was right. If Hu County was lost, it would be equivalent to giving Huang Song a prefecture's grain depot for nothing. It would allow him to continue fighting in the winter. If Wanzhou was lost, it would be equivalent to the enemy stabbing the heart of his own forces. The territory would be forcefully cut apart, and they would not be able to take care of everything. It was precisely because these two places were so important that Feng Jin could not understand why Huang Song had sent a large number of troops to attack Cangzhou. Cangzhou was a place that had no money, no food, and no warhorses. The warhorses had already been plundered by the lord. What else was there to gain? Feng Jin stared at the sand table in a daze. After a long time, he said, "Let's wait another day. We'll scout again and report." The battle between the feudal lords not only concerned the general situation of the world, but it also concerned the lives of one's family. If Huang Song wanted to win against the lord, he could not make a single wrong move. Sending a large number of troops to attack Cangzhou was in itself a move that could not be any worse. His state of mind was firm. He was not the least bit frightened by the 80,000 troops that Huang Song had sent out. On the fifth day, the sky was just beginning to brighten. The thick fog on the surface of the Gorge River had yet to dissipate. Huang Song sent another 20,000 troops to cross the river on boats. Another 20,000? Feng Jin was dumbfounded. Had Huang Song and his tacticians really been kicked in the head by a donkey? The two sides were not attacking each other's lifeline in a chess match. Instead, they were taking advantage of the small fish and shrimp around them. Even Feng Jin could not understand what was going on. Dian Yan panted heavily. He raised his hand and wiped his face with his fan-like palm. Greasy hot sweat soaked his palm, and he casually rubbed it on his armor. He had not taken this armor off for 2 days. The salt stains from the sweat that had dried stuck to the inner lining. It was quite uncomfortable, Dian Yan said. "Counselor, even if we don't request reinforcements from the Lord, we should still report that Huang Song sent 100,000 troops to cross the Gorge River." 100,000? Did Huang Song fish out the coffin? Feng Jin raised an eyebrow. "I will report to the Lord." Seeing this, Dian Yan could only sigh inwardly. Feng Jin's attitude was already very clear. He would rather put Cangzhou in danger to protect Wanzhou and Hu County. Thinking of this, Dian Yan's spirits were lifted. Only after resting could he fight the enemy to his heart's content. *CK them. Just as Dian Yan was cursing in his heart, Feng Jin said, "The troops that Huang Song sent were about 30,000 to 40,000, 30,000 to 40,000? The scouts reported that it was clearly 100,000. Dian Yan's cultural studies had been tutored by Yang Simeng. He could not compare to a professor of the 5 classics, but he could still count. It is precisely because the number of 100,000 is too large that the real number of troops is only 30,000 to 40,000. Feng Jin said, "There is a saying in military strategy that all is fair in war. If Huang Song really sent 100,000 or even more troops to attack Cangzhou, why has there been no movement in the past 5 days?" Feng Jin had no evidence, but he believed in his own judgment. Beside him, Meng Hun was extremely surprised. Then this 100,000, Feng Jin frowned. "I suspect that the enemy is probably divided into 2 groups. They cross the river during the day and circle back at night. The two groups take turns. They cross the river back and forth, causing the scouts to misjudge and mistakenly believe that the enemy has sufficient troops. If this is the case, everything makes sense. Dian Yen and Meng Hun were speechless. Was there such a trick? Feng Jin continued, of course, this is just speculation. Dian Yen and Meng Hun simultaneously shuddered. If they could not withstand the psychological pressure exerted by the enemy and really requested for more troops, for the sake of caution, we still have to make a comprehensive response and not give the enemy a chance to take advantage of the situation. Even if Zhangzhou was only a chicken rib, if he could swallow it, Huang Song could still gnaw some meat out of it. He had nothing to lose now, but his lord had to be cautious. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.